Greetings all, my name is JD from Studio 2105 and we are live right now. Welcome back, this is MixStream, episode 48. I can't believe it, I've been doing this for 48 episodes already. So, what is MixStream actually? So this is a live stream that I've been doing, since the middle of 2020 when, everything, the whole shit hit the fan, the proverbial shit hit the fan around the whole world. But anyway, pardon my language and my French. So ever wondered, what goes behind the scenes of all the favorite songs that you listen to, right? You always listen to stuff on Spotify, or you watch on YouTube, or for the more old school people, you listen on the radio. Right? Okay, so but ever wondered how all your favorite songs come to be? There is actually a very, very long, in-depth process, that goes behind it. There is a process of writing the songs, writing the lyrics, getting the musicians together, doing rehearsals, doing pre-production, and this is all before you even record a single bar of music or of audio inside a studio, a studio like mine here. So of course you get to the recording process, you record all the instruments, all the music gets recorded, all the vocals gets done, and once that's done, it gets handed off to a mixing engineer, which is myself here, and to do the mixing process. So this is just only a little glimpse into the entire the gears and the inner workings of the entire song production process. Just a little bit of glimpse into how all these things work, how all the recorded tracks gets pulled together into what we listen on radio, and as what we consider the final mix and the final master, the final version, the definitive version of the song that you hear, that's out for the public to hear. So without further ado, let me firstly, just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuning right now to this live stream. I've got a very special guest that's actually watching right now, and that is Mr. Nav, Mr. Nav, he runs his own show and his own YouTube channel also called something like that, with the podcast of the same name, which is called something like that. It's got a lot of cool interviews with local artists, producers, everyone behind the arts and the music industry is featured on his channel. So please go check it out, Definitely go check it out. You may even see, a certain person here be on one of these episodes one of these days real soon. So really, really cool. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Big shout out to you, for help coming and tuning into my little live stream. Okay, so enough about me, enough about everything. So let's talk about tonight's featured artist. So this episode's featured artist goes by the name of Sam Muhammad, So it might not be a name that you've heard very often, but hey, this guy has been around and has been doing some amazing stuff. He studied over in Korea for a couple of years, I think he went over there studying. I hope Sam's able to join us later. He said he can because he's working until 10 p.m. Then hopefully, when Sam comes in, you can give him a shout out and, drop a little message, and hopefully he'll come by and say hi to us in the live chat. But some of the achievements, are listed down in the description. And off the top of my head, in 2022, which is this year, he is the winner of the Kpop Malaysia World Festival, as the winner of the best vocalist. And he's been actually winning a couple of awards, getting featured on some reality TV shows such as I Can See Your Voice, not only here in Malaysia, but over when he was there in Korea as well. But, as with all things, it's a little bit sad, it's a little bit unfair that he doesn't get the attention, he doesn't get the press, which he rightly deserves, So, hey, come on, man. Labels out there, you should definitely sign Sam Muhammad up, So at the moment, he is definitely running and operating as an independent artist. But hey, who knows? Hopefully, good things will come for Sam. He's an amazing, talented singer. I first worked with him on a project that was on a song that was written and produced by a friend of mine, Zainal Zulia, He's another good friend which I've had amazing conversations with, and I featured Zainal as well in one of my episodes of Song Breakdowns. But this is his new song. This is Sam Muhammad's brand new song titled Bukan Dirimu. So, right, without further ado, let's get into it, okay? Right, oh, by the way, if you're not yet a subscriber, please do click on the subscribe button down below, okay? Right, thank you so much. I get all those things out of the way. Let's go. So, first things first, whenever we tackle a mix, right, we should always look at the big picture. Well, at least how I would do it. Let's always take a look at the big picture first. Let's not take a bunch of tracks which have been sent to you and then straight away start examining and looking at all the minutiae, right? All the minute details going into every single track. You want to pull together all the tracks together in a rough mix first. This is something that, is described as what we call the discovery and the framing process, okay? Well, you are trying to discover, the tracks are given to you, and you are trying to discover what are the tracks, what are all the different parts are trying to tell you, what's the story behind it. You're trying to get the overall big picture, right? You are trying to sort of frame everything so that you know the plot of the entire story. Like, you know how it starts, you know how it proceeds, how it goes into the verse, in the chorus, the whole song structure, where the different sections of the song, what are the parts, the instrumentation, what are the changes. You want to pull together a rough overall mix, right, to be able to tell. So let's go through this and then we'll sort of walk through the entire song structure. All right, so here's a rough mix which I've already pulled together. As you can see, obviously, all the tracks have already been prepped. There's drums, a little bit of percussion, bass, piano, right, acoustic guitar, some electric guitars. There's some leads, strings, main vocal, and BVs. Okay, so in terms of instrumentation, very straightforward lah. Right? This is very, very much a pop ballad kind of a song. So here we go. Let's listen to the rough mix. It starts with piano and acoustic guitar intro. Right. Right. So that's beautiful melody there by the piano. And then straight away, verse 1. It's just guitar and piano fills. It's going into a pre-chorus. Some BVs come in just to add a little bit of color. So this is song arrangement, music arrangement 101, building up parts. Then straight away into the chorus, the whole band comes in. Acoustic guitar is now playing the rhythm instead of the piano. Piano just puts in a little bit of fills here. And you have clean guitars, kind of just playing a bit of the counterpoint. Okay, still in the chorus. A little chord there. And then straight to the bridge. This is where the distortion guitars kick in. The strings also start to come in here as well. So it's an interesting thing. Quite a lot of song structures nowadays, like pop songs especially, employ this sort of song arrangement. So instead of verse 1, verse 2, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, then chorus, very often there's no second verse. So you see, this gets back straight away to it goes into a second bridge. Then chorus. So there's no verse 2 at all actually. And this is kind of interesting because this is something that I actually kind of first observed this from Taiwan and Taiwan productions. and on. Obviously, right? It's been adopted more and more by Kpop, by more other modern styles as well. But it's something that I originally first saw from Taiwan productions. Okay, so this kind of structure, we did just omit the entire verse too, and you just repeat of the chorus. And there we go. The music just abruptly ends and then it dies down to just the guitar. And a little bit of a flourish at the end. With just cellos at the back. I'm gonna fade that out, of course. And there you have it, right? So that is the overall rough mix, right, of the song that I've pulled together. So let's start, right? Let's go into the mix proper. So first things first, and I think I have beaten this topic to death already. I've talked about this on every live stream, and I even did a video on this subject. And that is, right, the first thing I would do is to set initial levels, okay? Right. So why setting initial levels is very important, because this is part and parcel of gain staging, okay? So what is gain staging? Gain staging is making sure that, right, all the signal levels from one stage to another, like, feed each other in the appropriate manner. One of the benefits of doing proper gain staging is to make sure that your final output, your final mix, will be at a healthy level, a good optimized volume level, right, with enough headroom, so it doesn't clip, it doesn't distort, but also, right, sufficiently high enough so that you won't go into noise, so that you won't encounter noise floor issues when you master it, right, up to distribution loudness levels, okay, right? It's quite a mouthful nowadays. Last time we used to say for radio broadcast levels. Now, because everything is streaming, it is the actual definition term now is distribution loudness. It's an even longer term right now, but basically the same thing lah, right? The loudness, so that it is, right, appropriate for broadcast. So how do I do it? Very simple. My way of doing so, right, is that I start, of course, by calibrating everything, right? My whole system, everything is all calibrated. But it's very easy, okay? Let me pull up the mix windows down here so that you folks can see. I'm obviously working with a dual screen setup, so they might not be able to see it. First things first, okay? All right. How do I set it? Is I do it by setting my kick drum level. So the way that I've done it, after I've measured, I've calibrated, I've set all my different levels, monitoring levels here, so that I get about 85 dB SPL. What I do is I try to aim for this kick drum to peak at about minus 12 dBFS, right? So it peaks about there. So I set it to peak at that level. And what happens after that, okay? So I set that kick drum at that level and balance all the rest of the tracks to it. Okay, so let's start. Let's dive in right away, okay? So let me just pull up this kick drum. So just kick drum only. All right, you won't be able to see it yet, but let me just pull it up. Let's go to maybe like the last chorus, last section where it's louder. Okay, let's put it up. There you go. A little bit more. So on my side, it's about minus 2 dB, right? Minus 2 dB setting. Now let me pull up the master, and you'll be able to see it. Here you go. See, it is peaking at about minus 12, okay? Minus 12.1 lah, right? Okay, so once I've set this is my target, right? I'm going to pretty much not touch the kick drum, and I'm going to balance everything else relative to this. So let's start, right, with the kick drum. So when you do this, this is a very, very useful tip and a very useful strategy, so that once I balance everything, in the end, the overall mix is going to settle at about 85 dB SPL at my listening position here. And why is 85 dB SPL important? Because that is the sound pressure level, the loudness level, where our human hearing is the most linear, is the most flat. And that's why, okay? I explained it in a video on my channel. If you have the time, please do check it out. So there we go, kick drum. No, let's go into kick drum first of all. Now, Another thing I want to point out is that on all the tracks, and I've already prepped this in advance, I always use the same treatment, okay? I drop in these two plugins. Right? The first one that I do is called Virtual Tape Machines. This is by Slate Digital. So Virtual Tape Machines emulates, right, an actual multi-track tape machine. In this case, it is emulating, right, a 2-inch 16-track machine, right, running Quantity 456 analog tape at 15 IPS, 15 inches per second. It's just one of the settings on a real analog tape machine. So it's as if it's been recorded to analog tape, right? So it goes next into Virtual Mix Rack, which has these two plugins in here. Right, the first one, this is called Virtual Channel. So what is Virtual Channel? Virtual Channel emulates, right, the signal path of a large format analog consoles, right? The famous ones that we all know are, things like the SSL, the API, the Neve, right? But here, very, very specifically, right, the one that I'm using is Brit 4KG, which is the SSL 4000G. So it's going through this channel, right? Channel of the SSL 4000. But it is also going through the preamp, and this here is an instance of FG73. So FG73 here is the Neve 1073 preamp. So to recap, right, what's happening is it's going through virtual tape machine. It's as if, it's been recorded on analog tape, then it's being fed into a channel, right, on an SSL with a Neve 1073 mic pre as the front end. So we're injecting a little bit of that analog flavor back into our digital recordings, okay? So it's not something that everyone does, but I recommend that you give it a try and see whether you like how it sounds like. Right? For me, right, it's something that really brings back a little bit of the sense of working with the analog consoles. I kind of grew up and I was trained right at the tail end of working with analog tape and analog consoles. Before moving on to digital audio with Pro Tools, earlier versions of Pro Tools and all that. So yeah, I was kind of fortunate enough to be able to kind of straddle these two eras, right? Especially the transition from analog to digital. But that's a story for another day. Okay, so let's go. Kick drum. First things first. All right, I would usually, by out of habit, I would usually do a high pass filter at 20 hertz. Let's listen to the kick drum. All right. Okay, so I would probably want to clean this up a little bit. It's, first of all, it's from a program drum already. So sound-wise, it's actually really, really good. There's honestly nothing much needs to be done here, except for maybe just a touch of compression. So what I've liked to do is I like to use FG Dynamics, which is the dynamic section of the SSL 4000. So somehow default settings work really, really good, which is actually a ratio of 5:1. Okay, fairly fast release. Attack is slow attack, soft knee, and this is just going to gently compress the kick drum just a tiny bit. All right. Okay, here we go. Let's bring this up. And I'm not looking for much. Not looking for a lot. Just a tiny bit. There you go. All right. So it's very, very subtle because, again, it's programmed drums. With a lot of programmed drums, it's very, very even, right? So I'm just using this to sort of shape, the transient a little bit more. So let's bypass. I may have to compensate the level. Okay, let's compensate. Let's bring it down by about a dB. About a dB and a half, I think. Bypass. Right, great. So it just lets that transient through, right? Just gives it a little bit more punch, right? Just increases the sustain by a little bit. Again, not a lot. And honestly, there's really not much that needs to be done here. Okay, I will probably drop in, my favorite, which is the API, right? Let me FGA, let me bring the screen here. And maybe just take out a little bit of 200 and a little bit of 400. That's good. That's it. Yeah. Don't need much to be done. Plus, anyway, at this early stage of the mix, we are working on incomplete information. We don't know how everything else fits in context with the whole track and the whole song, so we don't know, okay? So, next thing, and hey, I see some people who are already in the chat. Very, very cool. Right. I'll give a shout out. All right. Let me talk to you guys in a bit. So, one last thing that I want to do on these drums is gonna be little clipper, right? So that I will do. I usually don't put a lot of compression on the individual close mics of the drum, so to speak, like the individual kick, snare, toms, and all that. But I will do a little bit of limiting, right? Or in this case, right, a little bit of a soft clipping. So in this case, this is what you would use. This is Boz's little clipper. So this is just to shave off a little bit of the loudest peaks, right? So most of them, this is not even, there you go. Only at the very loudest peaks I have this to just tame the transient by a tiny touch. That's all it does. It's not really doing anything much, okay? So just to cut away just to bring down some of the additional transients. So here we go. Let's go next thing. I'm going to skip all of these. I'm going to skip the snare, hi-hat, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, tom 4, all hit. But before I do that, let me give a big shout out first of all to Ruin. Thank you for dropping your comments there. Hey, let me know where are you watching from, man. So Ruin says kind of like the Insomniacs vibe. Well, perhaps, maybe, that's very, very cool. For I see maybe there is where some of the similarities are there. But yeah, Insomniacs do their own thing, man, right? Sam Muhammad does his own thing as well, okay? By the way, I did mix Insomniac some of their recent stuff. So, well, that's really cool because they did hit #1 on the charts. So, I'm really, really proud of that. But anyway, the focus is on Sam, okay? So, now, I'm skipping the rest. I'm skipping all the snare, hats, toms, because what I like to pull together first would be the overall drum sound, and that's the overheads. So, let's blend the overheads in. All right, there you go. Sorry. So I like to bring in the overheads and the rooms early because this is what I refer to as more of top-down mixing. So it always depends. There's different styles of approaching this, okay? And I actually made a video on this on the channel as well. So, but basically, top-down is when you build your drum mix, right, from the overheads, the overall capture of the drum sound first, and then you bring in the rest of the close mics, the kick, snare, toms, hi-hat, to fill in that space wherever the overheads may feel that it's lacking in that certain area, right? You want to give it a little bit more sense of more in your face, a little bit more solidness to it. You want to have a little bit better in terms of the localization of exactly where in the stereo, because sometimes an overhead capture, it can be a little bit vague, especially if you're using like maybe a space pair, right, or a non-coincident kind of a stereo microphone array. So sometimes the close mics are there to give a little bit more localization, right? So it helps to localize the sound, right? The stereo imaging, the stereo position, right, of where that particular sound is. So, but this is building the drum sound from the top up, okay? All right. Now, bottom up mixing is a little bit different, right? If it's bottom up, I would start with the kick, then snare, right? All the close mics, I build the sound up first, and then using the overheads to just kind of fill in the cymbals. So it's the other way around. It's whether it's bottom up or top down, it is entirely up to you. Most of the time, I go for a top down approach because I prefer something a little bit more natural sounding. But there's no right, no wrong. Sometimes in certain situations, some styles of music, I would go for a bottom up approach. But anyway, here we go. Let's solo the overheads, right? Okay, I would take out considerable amount of the bottom, so I'd probably take out everything below 100. Okay, hearing this, Yeah, a little bit of this ringiness at about 1.5K, around that region. All right, let's take it out. Okay, right. So these overheads are, even though it's a stereo track, right, it's already being sent to me, but in terms of how I manage the my project template and the signal flow, I still actually send it to a group because this is part of my templates. So I'm actually sending it to this overhead group here. So let me just pull this up, this overhead group, right? What do I have in the overhead group? I have this instance of AOSys E2 de-essers. So these de-essers are very, very useful tools, not just for de-essing vocals. Now, de-essers are basically, right, a frequency specific, right? You know, it's a frequency, it's a bandwidth limited, you can say it's a bandwidth limited compressor. So in this case, right, it is tuned, right? The sidechain is tuned to filter out gently, right, or everything of all these high mid to high frequencies. So what this does, right, is that it helps to soften the overheads a little bit. So let's just run it through. So there you go. So you see, especially every time it crashes, see, it just cuts down. Just helps to massage the cymbal crashes a little bit, right? So it does not come out too bright or too sharp, right? Indeed, not too bright sounding. So let's bring the sensitivity a little bit higher. There you go. So it's every time you, right, the cymbal crashes hit, it just ducks it down. Not much, mind you, just like 1.5 dB, so it's not a lot. Yeah, it's about 1.5 dB only, maybe 2 dB at the max. So it's very, very subtle. It's just a gentle, right, gentle massaging of those high frequencies, okay? Right. So, and we also have, right, in the chat, Mr. Sam Muhammad himself. Hey, apa khabar, man? Sihat, bro? Right. Sam here says, excited. Fire, fire, fire emoji. All right. And Ruin says, I'm from Kota Baru, Kelantan. Hey, okay. Thanks for tuning all the way from Kota Baru, man. Right. Very, very honored. Terima kasih. Right. Thanks for so much. Do subscribe, okay, to my channel if you're not. Really, really appreciate it. So let's go on. So kick, right, and overhead. That kind of already gives me the overall drum sound. So I'm just going to bring in the close mics to sort of fill in the space. So let's bring in with the snare. Here we There you go. Okay, let's solo this. And actually, first thing we should do is let's check the polarity, okay? Even though this is program drums, right? It's always a good habit to just check polarity lah, all right? So let's check and see. Let's flip the polarity. Okay, yeah. Suddenly became a little bit thinner already. So definitely we know that originally the way it was, right, is the best. Right, so just make it a good habit to always check the polarity. I recommend, right, folks, by the way, if you're listening to this, I recommend that you either use a good pair of headphones or earphones, or if you can, sit in front of a good pair of monitor speakers, because if you're listening to this on your smartphone, your device, you're not going to hear a lot of these things because the mobile device, right, is just not able to reproduce all the detail and all the frequencies that are there. So, you know, people nowadays spend a lot of time listening to music on their mobile phone, speakerphone, but I feel bad because people are missing out so much of all the fullness and the beauty of the music and all the parts and all the elements that are in there just because they're listening on, tiny little speakerphones. But anyway, that's another topic, all right? So let's go back to the snare drum, all right? Again, with program drums using the samples is very clean. It's very, very even. Just going to notch out a few things, okay? Okay, right. So first of all, there's this little... So this 1.5K thing seems to be a characteristic of either the snare drum or maybe the environment where the samples were recorded. It's hard to tell, right? Probably the snare drum, looking at how it is. So, because if you notice in the overheads, I also notched out about 1.5K, same region. So even in this snare drum as well, I'm also noticing this. So just no. Here we go. Very nice. All right. So likewise, I'm going to do the same thing. All right. So I'm going to also do the same thing. Let's bring in the FG dynamics. Okay, this time I'm going to go with maybe slightly lower ratio, 4:1. Okay, but same in terms of the release, right? And let's check out. Right, so it's not really hitting it, okay? It's not really hitting it because the threshold is not high enough. And sometimes in terms of gain staging, this kind of things happen. That's perfectly okay. That's perfectly all right. So what I'll do is I'll insert this instance of trimmer, which is basically just a gain, a level knob, right? And just pump it up, all right? Right, so I bring it up about 7 dB. Okay, now we're getting a little bit of that compression going on. But we also need to compensate. So let's bring this down about 7. Let's start at 7. Okay, let's start at about that. Let's go back to the start. So about 8 dB down, right? You consider as well because of the gain reduction that's happening with the compressor. Yep. Okay, that's very cool. I'm very, very happy with it. I'm going to play around and see what we can do to try and really squeeze a little bit more sustain out of this. And right, I'm going to try a couple of things, right? I'm going to try a couple of things. I'm going to try this guy, right? So Monster is actually the well, they got really sometimes fancy names, but basically this is just an emulation of the 1176 with all buttons mode pressed in. Okay, so let's bring this down, mix at 100%. Okay, attack release would be, let's give a fast attack first. Okay, fast attack, fast release, and let's play around with this and see. Ooh, that's very snappy. That may not necessarily be what I want, you know, okay? Because, again, in working with a little bit of incomplete information, we haven't put in the bass, we haven't put in the rest of the guitars and the vocals yet. So, okay, let's skip this first. Let's put this away and go back to what I know I will want, right? It would be the same, right? The little clipper from Boss. So again, let's go and look for the sections, this is around the chorus and bridge, right? Let's just use this to just clip, right? And just to catch the very, very loudest peaks. That's all it's doing. Felt a little bit too much there. Yeah, okay, that's better. Yeah. So not everywhere, right? It's just going to catch the transients of the loudest hits. That's all. All right, that's excellent. Okay, so that's kick and snare. Let's move on. Hi-hat. Okay, so as I mentioned, right? So this close mic here, it's really subtle, and what I'm going to use this for is, again, more of, because you're hearing a lot of, I'm using it for localization, because you're hearing a lot of the hi-hat already in the overhead mic. So in the overhead track, so there is really no need to bring this hi-hat track up really loud. It does not need to be obnoxiously loud. So it's just there to give a little bit more solid localization. All right, so I'm gonna give it about 50. All right, halfway. Yeah. And I'll just filter everything out below 1K, man. That's all. In fact, I feel it could be a little bit wider, so let me just pull it out to all the way. Yeah, okay, I'm perfectly fine with it being all the way. Okay, so let's go on. All right, next thing, room. Okay, let's check out the room. Let's solo the room. Very good. It sounds like it's got a little bit of compression going on, but let's go a little bit crazier. Let's, usually with these room mics, I would want to give it a little bit more squeeze out of it. So I'll take out a little bit of the bottom end, everything like below 100. I'm also going to take out everything above 10K, right? Just filter out above 10K. And let's bring in one of my favorite toys for this. And this is Pulsar's Smasher. So this is actually kind of same with what the Monster is. This is, right, as it says here, it's the all buttons in fat compressor emulation. Right, so all buttons in here refers to the 1176. I don't know whether you can see, I've got one real deal 1176 down in here as well. So there's a mode where if you push in all the ratio buttons, right, all the 4 ratio buttons that's got 4:1, 8:1, 12:1, 21, there's a little workaround, a trick where you push it all in and it goes, right, really crazy and it distorts. So this is basically what it does. It emulates that particular setting. So let's pull this on the room track. Let me bring the mix up to 100%. Let's listen to how it sounds. Ooh. Immediately you can hear it's explosive. See, it's distorting, you get a little bit of distortion of the transients. The sustain of the cymbals, right? All the low level stuff gets brought up. But I need to compensate, okay? Make sure that output volume is, right? Because with all the gain reduction, it is bringing the volume down. So we got to compensate. There you go. Bypass. Ooh. It's almost distorted, man, like distorted drums. Bypass again. See, it's how it's raining and putting all the transients. So, on its own, it sounds wrong. It sounds really ugly, okay? Right? It's all distorted and all that. But let's listen to how it sounds in context, right, with the whole track. So here we go. All right, let's bring it in. Interesting. Bypass. Wow. So immediately, right, all that sustain of the room ambience has all just come up. So essentially what has happened is that we've actually, right, since we brought up, right, all the ratio of all the reflections, all the room ambience up in what is the room mic track anyway, you're basically adding reverb to this. So this room track is actually working as the ambience, where not only are we adding, right, the room sound to it, but we are also exaggerating, we're compressing, right, we're squeezing out all the ambience, we're squeezing out all the room reflections that are in the track, and then blending it back in. So it almost functions as a reverb. It gives this the whole drum kit, right, instead of a, right, let's play without. Nice. It's very dry. It's very kind of in your face. Then with the room, suddenly it becomes 3D. It sounds like a big hall, and that's just by adding a room mic, right? Room track. So even if you're, whether it's programmed drums or whether you are actually messing around with recording live drums, always try and experiment, right? Putting room mics inside. So here we go. Let's go. Let's go to toms. Okay, let's go to with this tom first. So obviously, a lot of it's being presented already in the overheads, but let's just do and fill in the more to fill in the gaps lah, so to speak, with all these close tracks. Okay, so once again, make it a good habit. Just check the polarity. Okay, so solo the tom track. In this case, let's start with tom 2 first, along with the overheads. Let's solo the 2. Okay, I put it in cycle mode, so I'm looping. Let's invert polarity. Let me bring this up louder. Flip again. Okay, you're right. It's very clear that the original, is a lot more in your face. It's subtle, but there's a lot more. The attack, the transient is a lot more clearer this way. So, in that sense, the polarity is correct lah. Okay, so let's start at about there, -6. Okay. Okay. Well, one thing though is that sometimes the thing about with using drum samples, programmed drum VSTs, is that it's a little too clean. So this is very, very clean. You're not hearing any of the bleed. You're not hearing any of the glue. So sometimes that is kind of why, the saying goes that sometimes programmed drums can feel stale. So a little bit sterile, so to speak. So that's kind of where the situation where we try to distort the crap out of things like the room mic, compress it, over compress it until the point of it distorting and adding it back in, because you want to bring in a little bit of that dirt, a little bit of all the rough edges back in. Otherwise, it's like the close mic of the tom is just so clean lah, with using samples and drum and program drums. But anyway, let's go on. Just my little side rant. I digress. Okay, so here I'm hearing this little oh. About 670. Sounds good. All right, okay, so let's go now to the next tom, which is actually the third tom. So in this song, there's actually 4 toms. So same thing, let's go and check it out. Make it a habit. It doesn't take, invert polarity. Just make it a habit. Flip it again. Now, in this case, inverting the polarity actually sounds better, but let me just check it in situ, as in the actual pan position, because it's now what I do. It's easier to tell when it is in the center, but sometimes it can be a little bit misleading, So I'm trying to determine which is better. So it sounds better with the polarity inverted in the center, but now if I put it in the actual pan position, it's worth double checking again. So here we go. Without. Flip. Okay, one more time. Okay, confirmed, right? So it sounds better with the polarity flipped for some reason or whatsoever. So here's a lesson for you, man. Even though it's something that's programmed, sometimes it's worthwhile checking, checking the polarity. Okay? So even though it's supposedly been recorded really, really well, but sometimes in some situations, you have to double check. So in this case, okay, so let's take out, there's a bit of this low. Ooh. It's about 400. So there's another honky, like a nil nasal, at about 740. So there is actually another little low end hum here. So it's actually an overtone, but okay, let's do this. It's about 200. Yeah, it's at about 200. So, well, you can actually see some little relationships here actually. So this is 400 where there is this little overtone here. So there's typically always going to be one at about 200, 400, right? These are, things what we call like harmonic series. There's always harmonics caused by it. So there's another one at 200, but I'm not sure whether the 200 one is actually bothering me that much. So what we're going to do is I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to touch it until, let's say, maybe when, again, we're working on incomplete information. We haven't put in the bass, the drums, and all the other parts. So maybe later on, clearing up that 200 might help. Okay. Again, it's also because these are just short little clips, right? Short little parts. So it's not so significant lah, right? It's different whenever. It's different if it's like a live drum track where you have all the bleed that's going on. Sometimes doing that will help. But let's just leave it, okay? And it's something what I refer to as set and forget. So let's just set it there, right? Remember, take into account that 200 hertz, but leave it, okay? Unless it really becomes a problem. Okay, let's move on. Let's go on to the other toms, right? So you got tom 1, right? This would usually be the highest tom. Again, let's check polarity. All right. Okay, this one is clear. The moment I flipped it, right, it sounds hollowed and disembodied already. So, right, it's clear that the original orientation is much better. So, let's solo the toms. All right. So he's got a bit 880. And that's all it needs. Okay, let's pan this at about 50% half, right? And lastly, this would be the tom 4, which is the low tom. All right, same thing, okay? Let's not be lazy. Check polarity. All right. Flip polarity. Back to normal. Okay, so the original one is a little bit better, okay? A little bit more low end. That immediately tells you that should be the right one. Check in situ again, right? In situ where the pan should be, right? Let's flip. Oh, okay, yeah, definitely. The moment I flip the polarity, again, it becomes a little bit thin. There's phase cancellation going on that tells you, right, that, right, it is, right, some phasing going on there. So let's keep it at where the original position is. So there we go, tom 4. Let's solo tom 4. Very clean, I have to say. So, not much in the way of things I want to touch. Okay, maybe at about 300, 320. Yeah, at about 320, just a little bit of boxiness there. So just a very mild one. So not much, right? With the low toms, not much. So let's go back to this section. Let's just see how the whole tom fill part flows. There we go. So without any reverb, I don't think it needs any reverb yet, but again, keep in mind later when all the tracks come in, maybe we will pump it up and add a little bit more reverb to it lah. So there you go. Those are the drums. And last but not least, I will add a little bit more. So let's go to maybe the busy section, the last chorus. So even though I don't do a lot of compression on all the individual tracks, I love to apply a overall drum bus compression. And my favorite tool to do that is the API 2500. So let's go, all right? This is already one of my favorite starting points. I'll have to bump this up, the output, by about a dB, and let's check it out. Let's see how it goes. Oh, already I'm loving it, right? All right. So bear in mind that this is not really a preset. It's because of what I talked about earlier, right? How I gain stage my drums by setting my initial kick drum level. So I know that when it's going to be hitting this compressor, it's really going to be hitting it at a certain way, at a certain level, that I don't really need to tweak any of this. It's not that this is a preset. It is, in a sense, a preset, but it's a preset that works because I already know and manage what my levels are going to be going into it and hitting it. Okay, so I would usually only mess around and kind of tweak around with the attack, and to see what the characteristics are. So by default, this is the fastest, which is 0.03 milliseconds, and let's just bring it down. Maybe let's go to 0.1. You will tend to hear a little bit more of the transient come through. 0.3. With 1, it pretty much lets the entire snare transient come in through. So it depends lah, okay? So I like the way it is with the... But maybe back it up a little bit. Cool. So I like it, yeah. So at about 0.3 milliseconds. So it's really, really fast attack, okay? So there we go. That's the drums. That's the drum mix. So let's move on to the next thing. Bass, the final frontier. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so let's blend the bass. So same thing again. Tape and console emulation. Very good. Very well recorded, very well played. Very even. So again, let's do a little high pass at 20. So now I'm going to do something which, right, is something which I've been doing recently, a couple of mixes, and I liked and I enjoyed it. This is what is being referred to as the Andy Wallace bass low end trick. So Andy Wallace is an awesome mix engineer. Right? I think we all look at it, right? So let me grab a little bit of coffee and it says and Samuel says, "Say hot bro, all right. How's your work, man? You're working until very late. Thanks for tuning in, guys, everyone." Right, so Ruben Oasis says, "I always use your live mixing as reference to mix my own tracks." Hey, that's very appreciative, man. Thank you so much, Thanks so much, for tuning in. Please do always join in, jump in, write the comments. And glad to see you on my on this live stream. Please, if you want to share your work, right? Please feel free to do so. The live chat session, but don't go and spam lah. Okay, if too much spam, then I will have to wield the moderator hammer and pen. So feel free if you want to share some stuff. Right, this is a place where you can sort of interact with each other. We've got Nav who's in the chats. We actually have like a couple of folks who are tuning in and watching this and right now, but kind of being a little bit shy and not saying hi. Please say hi, right? Okay, Sam Muhammad is in the chat already here, so it's an opportunity for you to get to know the featured artist. Hey, if who knows, when the song when Sam becomes a big huge superstar, then next time we won't be able to chat with him, man. Okay, so take this opportunity while it's there. All right, very cool. So let's go. So this is the so-called Andy Wallace trick, right? And it does not always work. It depends, okay? So what you will need though is you will need something like a 10 Neve EQ, all right? Something that is Neve-ish in style, but you also need a channel of the SSL. So this is what I'm going to pull up here. Obviously, I think in whether you're using other DAWs or other plugin suites, they also have something lah, some other emulations of this lah. But in Slate Digital, they have the FGN and the FGS. So FGN would go first. And the trick is that you will want to, first of all, add the low shelf filter, go for about 40 hertz, all right? And this is going to be the insane part. You're going to boost this all the way, maximum 16 dB, okay? At this point, the bass is going to be exploding, okay? It's going to blow up. But you sort of control and you shape it by also putting the high pass underneath at the same frequency, okay? So if you set this at 40, set this also at 40 hertz, okay? Now, the next thing also you do on the SSL channel, right? You would probably bring this, use 40 as a starting point, but often enough, I suspect that I'll probably need to go to 50 hertz and set the bell and tweak and play around with the settings. So let's listen to this, man. This is probably going to be... Ooh, so nice and fat, really fat. Okay, now there's a bit too much of the 200 area, so let me get rid of that. About 250, let me cut that down. So we're going to shave off about 3 dB. This is a very huge bottom end. So these are things which sometimes you have to experiment and you discover by accident lah, right? So sometimes the beauty of working with, you know, I guess working with all these large format analog consoles is that sometimes it's very easy to experiment and play with stuff because it's so easy to tweak with the knobs and just crazily dial in and just randomly do all this. Because who in the right mind would ever dial, right? 40 hertz, low shelf, 16 dB boost at 40 hertz. No one in the right mind usually would do that. But somehow doing that and interacting with, okay, the low pass filter underneath and also the low pass filter on the SSL channel somehow shapes it. Right, and then you will also need this little bell cut at about between 200, 300 to sort of manage it. So it kind of, right, looking at here, so maybe it will give this nice little warm, gentle boost, right? The boost is crazy, okay? But the shelves help to sort of round it out nicely. And then the little 200 to 300 cut, right, takes out a little bit of the low mid mud lah. So it gives you this really nice big bottom end, which I like. I like it on this, the way I'm hearing it. So let's keep with this and let's see how it goes with the rest of the tracks. Okay, let's bring this down. Obviously, it is a little louder, so let me just rebalance it again. Nice. There we go. So there you go. That's the bass from a very good, it's very clean sounding bass. Now it's got a lot of weight underneath, okay? So this bass, even though it's a mono track, again, based on my template and based on my workflow, I will still send this to this bass group. And let's take a look at what's happening in here, okay? So first thing I would put is Wave C4 stereo. This is a multi-band compressor. But the only band that's active is actually the low band, the first band. So this is tuned to about, I start about 180 hertz, okay? And so this is basically what it does. Let's solo the low band. All right. It's only taking the really low bottom end, right, of the bass, right? And it doesn't, the rest of the bands are all bypassed, like the mid-range. All right, it's bypassed, all the highs. It's all bypassed, okay? So it's just tackling the low end only. So there we go. Okay, this now in turn still helps to control, right, the low end a little bit more. Really evens the actual bottom end lah, okay? So there we go. All right, next thing that I sometimes find useful and find handy is this one. This is called Surfer EQ2. Sadly, I have to report to you that this is no longer part of the Focusrite plugin collective, I think. Right, it's no longer, right. It is by Sound Radix. So a couple of years ago, they started giving this out to all the Focusrite owners. So I don't think it's available anymore. So, but fortunately, I was able to get it. So anyway, this Surfer EQ is a intelligent plugin. So what it does is this band has this ability to surf, right, and to scan the. Okay, my laptop screen just went into standby. Hang on a second, otherwise I won't be able to monitor what's going on in the chat. Okay, my laptop actually went to sleep. So give me a second. Let me wake it up. Okay, I just got to wake up my laptop. So especially when September ends, you see. So let's go back to YouTube. Sign in, and there we go. Yeah, okay, cool. We're back. All right. So what this does, very quickly show you, right, that it has this ability to dial in. You look at observe this little green ball here, and the notes. This is actually tracking, right, the frequency, the fundamental frequency. E, D sharp, C sharp. So it has this ability of tracking, right, the frequencies in real time. So this can be useful because not only can you set it to the fundamental, the root, but you can also set it to all the upper harmonics. So I can, for example, set it to the second harmonic, which is 1 octave higher, right? So for instance, for example, if this is E, right? So if this is E, right, 1 octave higher harmonics is you times 2 lah. It's basically 166 hertz. Okay, in this here it shows 165, around that. Okay, so I would actually usually go for either the 5th or the 7th harmonic. I'll go with the narrowest Q, and let's see what happens there. Yes, so that little ringing frequency, right, that 5th harmonic is probably what I would want to get rid of. So just this helps to clean up that low mid area, right? Especially it's one of these odd harmonics, and that helps the fundamentals stand out a little bit more. Okay, right? So that's basically what it does. Solo again. Let's unsolo. Very nice. Okay. Now let's move on. Okay, next one that I have instance here, this will be a 1176 revision A blue stripe. Okay, so this is just to give it a little bit more squeeze out of it. There we go. Very even already. Very nice. So I'm just going to go something fat and something even. This is not really a rock track, so it doesn't need to have that, that real spiky. So I'm not going to really drive it that hard. But what I'm going to pull up next, right? This is Bass Rider. Another very useful tool, is another smart tool. So I set it to Gentle Rider, where this is going to be very, very subtle. So the target setting, I'm going to set this to a certain target level, and what the rider is going to do is it's just going to basically look ahead and just ride the level so that it will be even. Okay, so let's dial it in. You can see it working. Sometimes, down by sometimes by a couple of dB, and then up a few dB. Beautiful. Very even. Very nice. Okay, so now even more stuff is coming up. MV2. Okay, so MV2 is again one of my favorite plugins. If you want to check out where you can get these plugins, right, the links are actually in the description, so you can go and check it out. Okay, let's bring up the low level. So what MV2 does is it's a little bit of a mystery. No one really knows exactly, but it seems to be doing, because you see the user interface is so simple. There's only three sliders, and that's it. You can't control things like ratio, threshold, and everything. But it's basically divided into three. High level is the normal kind of compression that we know, right? Right. Sound signal exceed the threshold, then you apply gain reduction lah. That's compression. Okay. You have your output level here, which is to compensate for the increase in gain, right? When you add the amount of compression, right? The makeup gain increases. So you use this to try and compensate. The low level is where the magic of this plugin is, because what low level does is a little bit of expansion. It's a little bit of parallel processing, and it does something which in the past required a much more complicated signal path. You needed to set up you need to set up parallel path. You need different types of plugins to sort of, in order to do what this is doing with just one single slider. So what this is going to do is that this is going to bring up a lot more of the energy, right? It's going to bring out a lot of the low level detail stuff, things such as note articulation, the sustain, the harmonics. All of this is going to come up a little bit more, right? With low level, what waves called as low level, right? Low level compression. So here, it's obviously getting a little bit louder, but it's squeezing out a little bit more of those of the harmonics. That's actually more of what I want. I got to compensate, but got to bring down. Right. Okay, I got to revisit back this. I think still got to tweak and bring this down a little bit more. About 4 dB. Actually a lot more, about 6. There we go, right? So I kind of had to shape out that bell, that 240, 250 hertz bell a little bit more. Quite a bit, because, but again, bear again, right? That initial boost is 16 dB, okay? So that's quite crazy. Okay, let's move on. So that's drums and bass. Let's move on next to the main rhythmic instrument, which in this case is actually the acoustic guitar. So I'm going to go to straight away to the chorus, right? Let's leave all this first. I'll deal with that later. Okay, so let's listen to acoustic guitar. And hello, acoustic guitar. There you go. Very nicely recorded. All right, so let's just do a little bit of EQ to it. So about 1.2K, a little bit of that honk. And about 960. There you go, right? Very simple. We'll do a little bit more tweaking, right, at the later stage. So now, just copy the settings over. Let's link the two acoustic guitar tracks. Let's link it and let's just blend it in. Beautiful. All right, so now let's go to the group. Okay, I'm going to pull up a sort of a preset that I already have for acoustic guitar. Presets in the sense of what processors I want lah. So I'm going to want this little TDR Nova here. So Nova is going to be a plugin which you see that I use a lot in my mixes. So Nova is a parallel dynamic equalizer which you check out from the company, the developers. They are called Tokyo Dawn Labs. Check it out. Again, the link is also down in the description. The best thing about this plugin is it's free. It's a fully functional 4 bands, right, of parallel dynamic EQ. totally free of charge, right? Of course, if you can buy the gentleman's edition one, which gives you 6 bands, which is I think still really really affordable price, but they're a really cool company, man, that they give away this plugin for absolutely free. So let's dive in a little bit more. Okay, so let's do a little bit of, let's find out. Okay, so now with acoustic guitars, there's always going to be a little bit of woofiness depending on the size, depending on the type of guitar. So I kind of just want to eliminate a little bit of that woofy, that woom woom, right? Which sometimes can be annoying. Now in some styles it's actually okay, but here with the pop ballad, we want to clean it up a little bit more, lah. Right? So let's engage band 1, all right, with picking filter solo. Let's listen. There you go. It's about 178 hertz actually. It's around there. So let's take out the gain, zero it out, get out of solo, and let's engage, right, the dynamic EQ mode. So it can function, TDR Nova can function as a normal EQ, your basics, right, straight up, right, vanilla parametric EQ, right, your boost, cut, your bandwidth, and your center frequency. But the dynamic EQ function is activated when you click threshold. And then, right, you click this, and then all these controls light up, and you see all these familiar terms and parameters like ratio, attack, release. So basically what this is, that this is dialed in so that it's going to be a frequency specific, a targeted compressor, right? Again, it's not really strictly speaking a compressor because it's an EQ, but it reacts dynamically. So in this situation, whenever this 178 hertz frequency, this little boom 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 that's coming from the acoustic guitar pokes out a bit too much, it will attenuate those range of frequencies according to whatever bandwidth that you've set it to. So let's see how this works. Okay, I would put it to a ratio of about 3:1, right? Attack 20 milliseconds is fine enough, right? Actually, I might go a little bit faster. Let's go to like 10 milliseconds. Let's bring the threshold down. So there you go. So you can see what it's doing. See, on the different chord, different position, it's got a little less of that woofiness. So you can see that it's reacting dynamically. So whenever that frequency jumps out, that's only where it reacts. And when it doesn't, when that frequency doesn't jump out, it lets it go. So dynamic EQ is a very powerful tool because it's very transparent, right? It doesn't act like a regular EQ, okay? So it only acts when you want it to. Okay, let's widen the Q a little bit. Alright, so there we go. So I'm going to use this just to clean up a little bit more. There is a little bit of the nasal honkiness. At about 500 hertz, right? So let's dial that down. Oh, did we suddenly go back to mono? Oh yeah, we did. There we go. Let me just bypass everything. There we go, right? So the low woof, the boom, 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 it's gone. This is basically what it's controlling. Now, a little bit at 3K. Maybe this one will be a lot more subtle, right? Right, and a little bit wider Q. Right, this one is just a tiny touch, right? right? Because sometimes that 3K can be a little bit strident, and that helps to give it a little bit of space. Let's listen in context. Yeah, it's cleaned up a little bit of that low-end woofiness of the acoustic guitar. Okay, but what I'm going to add is a touch of this LA2A, in this case FG2A. So maybe about 1-2 dB. Right, and I will probably want to just give it a little bit of brightening. I'm just drop this custom series lift EQ. Bypass. Just a little bit more definition to the pick attack. Yeah, that's what we're getting out of it. Bypass again. Yeah, I know that, a little woofy. Jumps out. That's the attack of the pick comes out a little bit clearer. All right, really, really cool. Okay, so now, what's next? What's next? Okay, there's a lot of other stuff that's here, but I'm actually going to skip all this. Like all the distortion guitars, all these clean delays, the overdrive, the strings, all that. And I'm going to jump to the vocal. And the reason why is that, you know, the saying is vocal is king. And vocal is the most important element of any song and any mix that's out there, okay? That is what the listener gravitates to. That's what the listener, right, listens to the melody, they listen to the words and the lyrics, and that's the one that they sing. No one is humming out bass parts, okay, except for bassists lah, and musicians. No one's going to be humming out the octave guitar line out there, right? No casual listener is going to do that, right? Everyone, right, the fans, the listeners are going to be focused, right, on the vocal, and so it helps in the mix to always try to bring in the vocal early as possible. So I always like to bring in the vocal and start working on the vocal whenever I have, first of all, the rhythm section, the foundation down. Right, that means the drums, the bass, whatever the rhythmic chordal instrument, be it a piano, right, or in this case, the main one that's doing it is the acoustic guitar. So once that's done, I want to bring in the vocal as soon as possible, right? So here we go. Now I'll just run through you very quickly what I have on my vocal chain, right? TDR Nova is what I showed you earlier. Okay, so let's start with that. Okay, let's start with that. And just blend in the lead vocal first. Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia. Alright, let me turn off a little bit of all the effects first. Let's turn it off. So now it's basically dry, okay? So not solo the vocal, all right? All right, let's go with the chorus. So, all right, oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, so let's start first of all, TDR Nova. So what I'm gonna do is that, first of all, high pass filter, 12 dB per octave. Let's take away all of the. Yang pernah ku sakiti. So about 120 hertz, all right? All right, maybe actually before I move any further, I'm going to sort of describe what are the two things I'm going to do, okay, with the lead vocal. Now, most of the processes can be sort of divided into these two rough categories, but it's a lot clearer when I deal with vocals. So, right, here it is, right, with vocal processing and vocal mixing. there's basically two different steps, two different stages. So the first stage is what I call, right, the corrective processing. So corrective processing here refers to things like, getting rid of all the things that's all the unwanted things, getting rid of all the ugliness, all the ugly words, whatever, the harshness, right, all the stuff, right. Basically sort of, making sure and preparing the vocal so that it's nice and presentable lah, right? So all the unwanted things, all the warts and all the noises and all that stuff, it's all taken care of. So this is done, right, in preparation for what I call the creative processing stage, and that comes later. So that is where you can be a little bit creative. You use compressors, you use EQs to add color, to sort of shape the tone. You add the effects, you reverb EQ and all that, and that is where that comes into play lah, right? So let's start first of all, right, with the corrective side, right? So high pass filter, let's high pass all the low end information. Okay, so here we go, soloing the vocal again.
Aku sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
All right, so this is worked fairly close to the mic, so a little bit of nasal honkiness. All right, at about 480. So let's take it out. Let's disengage a band solo. Let's go into threshold. Now with vocals, right? In TDR Nova, the dynamic EQ section, you can either be right individual bands, or you can go into wide band mode, and this is what I'm gonna do, right? So wide band means that it will be all the different frequencies are going to share the same settings like in terms of the ratio, attack and release. So with this, I will go 3 to 1, attack, fastest, release, fast-ish as well, okay? Basically the fastest it can go lah. The reason why is I want TDR Nova to react as quickly as possible whenever the problem frequency comes up. But at the same time, I also want it to let go as soon as possible, right? So very quickly, I want it to be as transparent lah. So fast attack, fast release on the dynamic EQ. So here we go.
Saat ku belum mengenal cinta, andai ku
So that helps to clean up a little bit of
memilih cintamu untuk kali ini.
Alright, okay. So now when we get to the higher frequencies, right? So sometimes it can get a little bit strident. So let's go to this last chorus. Here we go.
Yang pernah ku sakiti.
Yeah, so you can hear all that that those frequencies start coming out, and that's perfectly normal. Every singer, whenever you hit your high register, you always tend to get a little bit strident. So let's pinpoint that and try to sort of smooth that out a little bit. About 4.5, 4.6K, around that. So once again, go into the wideband mode. I'll disengage the solo first.
Cinta, andai ku memilih cintamu untuk kali ini.
Very nice. Okay, let's listen in context. Okay, very cool. All right, so that's TDR Nova. That's the first thing. Second thing that I have used sometimes, right, depending on the song, is Smooth Operator. This is by Baby Audio. Okay, so this is also gonna basically do the same thing, the same kind of treatment, right, or as what TDR Nova is doing. This is gonna smooth out, right, but this one is a little bit more gentler, right? You can actually adjust what we call the focus This focus here actually is basically just a mix lah. They just want to call it focus, a different name, just for the sake of being different. But very cool company, okay? Baby Audio have all their plugins. So I'm gonna go for vocal smoother. Right, this one, as you can see, automatically it's got a very nice curve to it, but it's also got this little high-end boost to kind of give that little bit of silkiness to it, lah, so to speak. The output, I believe, will need to be compensated down.
Yang pernah ku sakiti
Bypass.
saat ku belum mengenal cinta. Andai ku
So right, yeah, so big difference.
memilih
Here's like a little
cintamu
muddy, a little bit
untuk
dark.
kali ini pasti
Yes.
akan ku terus berpaling, namun
Bypass.
pilih untuk setia.
Okay, let me solo this low mid section. I just want to dial this in a little bit better. Yeah, so it helps to, you see, dynamically it's smoothing in all those, the mud.
Lagi kisah kita telah berakhir.
Let's go back to the chorus.
Cintamu untuk kali ini pasti
Let's bring it down about
akan ku terus
Bypass.
berpaling, namun ku pilih untuk setia.
Oh, let's bring this back down again, okay?
Dengannya.
Very nice. Okay, so immediately already it's giving a lot of clarity to the vocal, right? Just by smoothing out whatever, you know, the frequencies, the rough, the harsh frequencies, it just adds a smoothness to it already. Okay, now let's not forget, right? I still actually have the virtual tape machine. I still have this, and also the virtual mix rack. But the difference here is that I've got a couple of other things. So instead of the FG73, instead I use, right, the Hollywood Virtual Tube collection. So with vocals, it would benefit with a little bit of tube preamp, you know, a little bit of tube drive lah. With vocals, it can flatter it a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do, right? But the next thing, what I want to bring your attention to is this guy. This is FG Stress. So this is the Empirical Labs Distressor, right? This is their model of it, and this is set to a parallel nuke, right? So great thing about a lot of these newer plugins is that you don't have to set up a complicated parallel processing chain. You can do it all via the mix knob. So basically it's 50-50. I'll start off at 50-50 here. So what this is going to do is that it's going to blend the uncompressed signal, right, with a fairly aggressively compressed vocal here. So this is what's going to happen. So let's check it out. Let's actually go to the more aggressive part of the song, like here. Let's bring this up by about. Yeah, so I need to bring the trim up by 6 dB so that it's kind of hitting the FG stress at the level that I want. But I got to bear in mind that I'll need to compensate lah later on down. Okay. All right, very cool. Well, let's play that back again. Let me just solo the vocal this time, right? Solo.
yang pernah ku sakiti.
Right, let's put the mid-range detector.
Saat ku belum mengenal cinta.
Very nice, okay? So let's check out, right, some of the saturation modes, right? The distortion 2 modes, right? There's distortion 3, distortion 2 and distortion 3. Let's check out which one. So this is without. Let's see which one gives a better result.
Yang pernah ku sakiti saat ku belum
Let's go with distortion 3.
mengenal cinta.
Without.
Andai ku memilih cintamu untuk kali ini.
I actually like distortion 3, but okay, let's compare. Let's check it out at a quiet spot, which is in the verse, okay?
Jangan kau
This is without.
ingatkan aku.
Let's go with distortion 2.
Kini kau ada dirinya.
It seems to add a little bit of.
Lenyapkan semua rasa yang masih tersisa. Kau harus.
Okay, let's stick with distortion 3 for now, okay? Let's stick with that. Let's see how it goes. Again, you set and you don't forget, okay? We set it at this, and then we'll judge and see later on in context of the mix if maybe a better option is there, okay?
Semua rasa yang masih
Now, obviously, all this is a little bit louder, okay? So let me just compensate. Just bring it down.
Sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
Nice. I forgot to point out one more thing. This is, of course, a de-esser, right? Just mild de-essing, okay? So, again, this is part of the corrective processing part, right? You get rid of all the unwanted stuff. You get rid of all the big volume jumps and the inconsistencies, and that's where the parallel processing comes into play. De-ess a little bit. And just one more thing, okay? Again, let's jump to maybe the loud section, like the bridge. So one last thing here is this is an instance of R-Comp, Renaissance compressor, the good old Renaissance compressor. And what this does is, again, very subtle. This is going to be set so that I'm just catching the loudest peaks by just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. Let's go bridge. Let's go to the last chorus. So it's not act. So it only acts at really the loudest parts, and it's not even more than 1 dB of gain reduction. That's kind of what I'm looking for, okay? It just only touches it very, very subtly. And I feel that the parallel is maybe a little bit too aggressive. Maybe I want to let it breathe. And sometimes when that happens, right, the easiest way to do it is just to back off the mix knob. So let's pull it back to, let's say, maybe 30%. That's on a different track. Okay, then you should come back here. Let's go back to distortion 2. 3 starts to get a little scratchy at the top. I may need to drop in another plugin later on, like something like refinement, to try and sort of, or maybe let me tweak around with Smooth Operator a little bit more. All right, so this should be able to do the job better. Okay. Okay, solo the section.
kenal cinta. Andai ku memilih cintamu untuk kali ini,
Yeah, let me just cut.
akan ku terus berpaling.
Okay, yeah, that kind of helps to sort of mellow down a little bit of that scratchiness out there. Sam, I don't know whether if you're still there. What mic did you use to record this? Because sometimes that can give a clue, right? It gets a little scratchy on the high end, okay, like a little bit of distortion going on. So, but no worries, right? We can deal with it.
Pernah ku sakiti.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, so now let's. Okay, so over here there are some parts of the song which, the vocal which kind of splits. So let's just copy this over, right? Especially this part of the chorus here.
Dirinya, maafkan aku.
All right, beautiful, very nice. Okay, so now this is kind of where we're going to step into the creative side of things. Okay, we like, hey, got a lot of concurrent viewers, man. So if folks, if you're there, don't be shy. Please say hi in the chat. Sam is here. Sam is watching, and I'm not sure whether it's if Nav whether he's still there or not. Ruin is also still here. We got all the concurrent viewers here which are watching, but don't be shy. Please say hi, okay? Let me know that you're there. Say hi to Sam as well, okay? Check out his this is his brand new upcoming single that we are working on, right? He's a little sneak peek into the behind the scenes process. Okay, so we are now going to be stepping into the creative processing stage of the vocals. Okay, so all the corrective stuff is done, right? I like how it's sounding, right? Tone wise, okay, in terms of the levels, the dynamics, all that is exactly what I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do something which is called the vocal thickening trick. So there are many ways of doing it. There's also a video which I've done on my channel, so please go and check it out, okay? Right, just search for vocal thickening trick. It's one of my most popular videos out there, okay? So but I'm going to show you how this is going to be done in here in the mix session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this or the lead vocal tracks into this plugin, okay? This is called Doubler, right, by Waves. Now Doubler is basically a double tracker, kind of a chorus modulation plugin. So you don't necessarily need to use this. There are a lot of other plugins. I think there's even Vocal Doubler out there which is available for free. There's some free ones out there which you can check out. But basically, right, I'm just using this in my workflow lah. So what this does is, and I can solo this for you. I've sent the lead vocal, I routed and bussed it to this, so you can hear how it sounds like. All right. It's very wide, super wide stereo. Okay. Right. So that's basically what it does, right? It makes a copy of our vocal, pans it left and pans it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually run it and export and bounce several copies of the vocal, each time with varying amounts of detune. Okay. And then once I'm done, I'm going to blend all of those in again. And the result is that it's going to give a thickening effect. It's again something that you could do with chorus, you can do with other plugins as well, but this very specific workflow, right, of bouncing it to tracks enables me to have a little bit of flexibility later on to EQ, right, those parts even more lah. So I'm going to start with, right, +3 -3, but one thing very important that we got to do is let's go to the stereo bus and let's bypass everything that's on the stereo master, okay? Because very important, because otherwise if I export it, it's going to be exported with all the stereo processing as well. We don't want that, okay? Otherwise it'll be over processed. So select all of the main lead vocals, right? Locators to selection and export. Okay, let me bring the dialog window over so you can see it. Make sure export to Doubler. And this is a good time, right, to go and grab a coffee, grab a drink, grab a toilet break. I'm also going to do a toilet break as well, okay? A quick one. So, doubler, plus 3, make sure wave file, sample rate, 48K, 24-bit, left-right channel, meaning that this is going to be a stereo. It's going to be a left-right, okay? And with Cubase, right, I'm sure your DAW has that similar function as well. Create audio track, insert to pool. So it will re-import, okay, it will re-import the track into the project. And right, let's run this and don't go anywhere, folks. I'll be back real soon, okay? And hey, folks, I'm back. Okay, that probably didn't take too long, all right? So now what we need to do after we have exported that first track is we're going to do it a couple of times more. In fact, we're going to do it a total of 4 times. So the second time round, let's go back into Waves Doubler. So the second time round, I'm going to change these detune values, right, to -6 on the left and +6 on the right, and export this. Now the reason why we are changing and flipping the positive and the negative value is very simple. Because if you don't, right, if you just keep +6 on the same side, right, all the positive values on one side, what's going to happen is the exported track is going to sound sharp one side, it's going to sound flat on one side, which is a little bit weird. So flipping this around, right, alternating, will help even it out. You will give you the sense of the thickness and the additional thickness without making it sound like lopsided lah. Okay, so basically that's the whole idea. So here we go. This will be the second one. Export doubler. I would just call it -6. Okay, and export audio. Thanks, man, so much. Okay, folks. Let me just talk very briefly. Okay, there are many ways that you can support, right, the channel. You can. The simplest one is to always to like this video, to comment down on it, to share it with your friends, right? Especially if you got people who are interested in this sort of a niche topic lah, recording, mixing, mastering, and all of that. Second way to help is, of course, to subscribe to the channel. That would be awesome. They really appreciate it. But if you want to take an extra step further, right, what you can do is you can actually check somewhere up on the video, in the video, the screen that's showing there, right? If you want to help to not only support the channel financially, but also, right, support the featured artists, you can sign up become a patron. And that is, right, it's a crowdfunding, it's a subscription based thing where every month, right, you, for as low as $3 a month, which is basically $3 is like 12, 13, 14 ringgit, right? Basically a cup of Starbucks lah, for example, a month, right? You can help to contribute, right, to a little bit of, basically a cup of coffee lah, okay? You can help to contribute, right, to helping to sustain the channel, right, in so that I can do more stuff, so that I can, enhance and upgrade more things and more programs or more different types of content for you guys out there. But most importantly, also, right, 50% of the revenue will go to the featured artist, okay, to Sam Muhammad. So check it out. The details are there. The details also down in the description. If you want to help to support, that will be very appreciated, okay? So let's go now with I was talking so much that I forgot how many did we export already. Okay, cool. So the next one would be +9. Okay, +9. Let's export it. Let's see. Right, we've got all these viewers here, and but all shy. Hey, please say hi, okay? Right, if you are sort of tuning into this right now, okay? Let me know where you're tuning from. What's up? How are you guys spending your Friday night? Anyone's gone to any gigs and festivals recently? Right, there's so many shows, so many gigs. You know, the live music scene is, man, I've never seen this so vibrant before. You know, and it's good lah. I'm happy lah. I'm happy that musicians are busy, bands are busy with gigs and all that. Um, spoiler alert. Okay. Bob Shavit is coming out with new material. We actually have a new single that's been ready. We've been writing it since 2020, 2021. It's been ready since last year, but we've never had the right time to put it out. So, we are gonna release it real soon, right? It's featuring a very good friend of ours, a good friend with the band, right? I won't mention who yet, but you can take a guess. Like, it's from the frontman of one of the biggest bands, right, in Malaysia right now. So, all right, spoiler, some little teasers for you all there. And we're playing a lot of shows. Next week, we're playing one show. We're playing the Rock On Festival at Taylor's. We're playing at the MotoGP. We are playing at KL Big Party 5. And also Rock the World. Okay, so Rock the World is back. Awesome. Check it out, right? Details, right? I'm sure you can find it all on social media lah. So last one, doubler, -12, okay? So I'll do a total of 4 exports here. You got +3, plus -6. You got the 3, 6, 9, and 12, right? Cents. I don't go beyond that, because once you start getting into 15, 18, 20 plus above, it starts to sound out of tune already, okay? So you don't want too much. You just want it to be subtle, okay? So almost there. Where's my coffee? I left it over on that table. Let me go and grab it, okay? Hey, Sam says, yeah, you were working until 10, then now watching you. Thanks, bro. It's good to thanks for connecting and thinking of me for mixing your song, man. And also thanks to Sam, okay, for being gracious enough to allow me to sort of feature it in the live stream. All right. Hopefully, right, you guys follow Sam's content. I think he's on TikTok, all right? I'm not a TikToker. TikTok lah, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Sumo also, right? Sam is also there as well. And Nav says, finally, been waiting for something from Bob Shavit. I'll save the story for when we talk on the live stream lah, I suppose. Okay, I'll save that story for another time. Tonight, right? It's all about Sam. Okay. Thanks for staying and tuning in all this while, man. Listening to me ramble on and on and on. This program is a definition of not for everyone. Okay, it's only for select a few people. All right. So here we go. Let's route the lead vocal back to the main lead vocal, and I'll solo these for you so you can hear how it sounds. Right? These are what double tracks all sound like. Very chorusy, it feels like you're swimming, right, underwater. But the key thing is that this is going to be blended into with the lead vocal, okay? So here, let's play. Bypass. So this is just a very subtle thing. What it's adding, it's adding a little bit of, especially when I EQ it a little bit more, because I'm gonna take out a lot of the bottom end and a lot of the low mids. It's giving it a little bit of extra air, a little bit extra sheen to it, but also a little bit of weight, a little bit of density. Essentially, that's why it's called the vocal thickening trick, right? Long story short, like, it's just one way of doing it. There are many ways of doing so. There are also some plugins nowadays which can do a great job of emulating this. Okay, but so let me just EQ this. Now let's go to somewhere that's a little bit more dynamic, right? Last chorus. Okay, there we go. There we can hear.
Sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
So around 960, around that region. This is gonna be. I'm gonna widen it a little bit more, okay? Because it's a little bit whistly here. Okay, and that bit of the scratching at about 6K. All right, there we go. All right, so this is why I bounce it out to audio tracks, because it allows me to sort of fine tune these things a little bit more. It's perfectly fine. You could just use plugins as well, but doing so, even though it's a little bit more extra work, it takes a little bit more time, but it gives me that flexibility. Not only that, I can also automate. I can also bring the volume up and down, right? Of course, you can do it with a plugin also, but it's so much easier when it is actually a actual audio track by itself. So here we go, right? Let's go back to this chorus first of all.
Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
Very cool. Okay, very nice. So very subtle, okay? It's not meant to be, again, if I bring it up a little bit too much, you start to hear a little bit of the swirliness, the chorusy sound, which in some styles is okay. But, like if you're doing a little bit more 80s, a little bit more retro sounding, but this one, a little bit more contemporary sound, right? The funny thing is that, in the mid 2000s, when I would say this sort of style, which I sort of hear, again, I said it started off with a lot of Taiwan productions. Then obviously it spread a little bit more to Japan, right, and Korean and K-pop sound. So to be frank, to be honest, it's not really a new sound. When a lot of this K-pop ballads, it's stuff that I've already been hearing done in Taiwan productions, even like 15 years ago, man, almost 20 years ago. So in the past, those vocals used to be bone dry, so maybe bone dry is making a comeback. Okay, who knows, right? So anyway, let's go on. Creative stage. So first thing I would pull up would be, okay, so all of the vocals are all then, all right? Similarly with my workflow and my template, it's all being sent to this vocal group, and this vocal group is where I have all this additional processing. I'm going to start off first of all with a 1176, my favorite 1176. Okay, so let's activate it. Let's go into gain reduction mode. Fastest attack, slowest attack, fastest release, the classic setting, right, of 1176. And let's pull it up and see. So again, I'm going to start with the most dynamic part, the last choruses.
Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia yang pernah ku sakiti.
Okay.
Saat ku belum mengenal cinta.
All right, okay. You can see that it's pretty aggressive with this, right? Although I did back it off a little bit, I decided, especially when it gets to the high note. Okay, this is not really doing any sort of a dynamic control here, because it's already in terms of like how we are already treated with, first of all, the parallel processing, right? The FG stress with the parallel processing setting, right? A little bit of all the tube, the tape emulation, everything, and along with this, it's already controlling the levels, so it's already actually even. So these compressors here are actually, they're more for tone, because, and without trying to go into a long-winded technical explanation, compression is actually a form of distortion. Every time you alter the wave shape, right, so to speak, you are not only changing the level of the audio signal, but you are also changing the spectrum, the relative spectral balance of what the content is. So that's why we say that, when you compress stuff, not only do you control the dynamics, but even things like the sustain, the harmonics all come up as well. And this is what the 1176 is doing. Actually, it's not there to control dynamically. This is more of a tone, right? It's more for the tone sculpting out of this. So that's what it is actually doing. Okay, so 1176 first. One great thing is that somehow Sam, your vocal is not very sibilant, which is excellent, right? That gives me room to play around with the EQ, which is the next thing that I will pull up, which is the Pultec. So now this Pultec, if you actually pay attention, this is actually before the 1176, and this is going to be a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because now I've actually set the compression level here first, all right? So I've got it to kind of where I like, but I'm going to do something a little bit more radical by boosting the Pultec EQ into the compressor. This is going to pretty much drive this a little harder even more, but at the same time, right, it's going to react in a totally different way, right? So this is what I'm going to do. Let's go with the broadest bandwidth. Let's check it out. Just a little bit of bottom end. Oh, I love it. Right, so it's very different, okay, in a sense that in a different way, right? So the more you push, the more I'm pushing, right, the boost, right? In this case, 4K. I might go with 3K. We'll experiment and see. But basically, the more I push this high mid and into the compressor, right, it's, yes, there's more gain reduction, but it's control. So, it's kind of spreads it out, it evens it out a little bit rather than putting the EQ behind. You can always put the EQ after. There's nothing wrong with it. Depends on the style. But this is just the way I like, right? And it's something that I've learned from watching some other people mix as well. So this is just a way that I like, that it helps to sort of react in such a way. So, but let's go to a different frequency first. So it started off at 3K. So let's go, start at 4. Let's go with 3. I actually like 3K more. Let's go to 5. Okay, when I go to 4, 5, and 8, it starts to bring that scratchiness back again. So again, yeah, hang on a second. Oh, we got a lot of comments from that, man. Thank you so much for tuning in, man. All right, Sam, do you remember what vocal mic did you use? Because sometimes it helps to with people who are involved in the production process to sort of communicate with each other, to know, okay, it was done with this, it was recorded to this it was recorded with this mic, because sometimes it's useful information that you pass it down to the next person so that they know, oh, okay, right, because of it was recorded with this, then I know how to anticipate, right, certain things and what to expect, lah. Like, for example, if God forbid it was recorded with a U87 to the LA610, which is one of my, okay, not my hated, my second hated chain, right? Okay, Honestly, I just don't like the LE610. Right, the T4, the compressor section is awesome. It's beautiful. I just never dug the sound of the 610, the 610 preamp lah. Okay, but basically, if it's that combination, it usually is way too sibilant. It's way too spitty, and it's like I have to work so hard to mix it. But anyway, so 3K is where it is, right? So this is where that magic is. So let's leave it at 3K. All right. Let me.
Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia yang pernah ku sakiti.
Very nice. Okay, I'm liking it. All right. So 3K is where it's at. All right. So next thing, a few other things to add as well. Now earlier on we saw bass rider, but now we're gonna have vocal rider. All right. Not sure. Nav, I think we are the same generation, so maybe you caught that reference lah. Vocal rider. Okay. All right. 80s kids will know what that reference is lah. All right. So, Vocal Rider does the same thing similarly with Bass Rider, but it is tuned more towards vocal frequencies. So, same thing. I'm going to go for a smooth ride, which is slow, right? Basically, a slow response, right? And the range is limited because I don't want to have too big of a range. Otherwise, it's going to jump up and down to try to match the level. Again, with vocals, you don't want it to be too crazy. So this is just going to even things out a little bit more. So again, louder section.
Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
Okay, right. So I'm going to have to compensate the output by about 2 dB. About 3 dB. All right, okay, very cool. So again, set and don't forget, let's just move on to the next thing, okay? Really happy with where it is. So now, with some of this dynamic and the tonal control down, let's play with a little bit of effects. So one of the things that I like to do, first of all, is to, I like to kind of place the vocal inside a expensive sounding room, okay? So typically, right, if you put in a nice Hollywood or a New York studio, it's going to be a room with really, really nice wood walls and everything, right? Timber wood surfaces. So I'm going to do this using Super Tap. So Super Tap is actually a delay, but this is set so that this is going to be a single, it's a stereo delay, but it's only a single reflection. No feedback because you don't want repeated, right, delay tails. But the important part here is this EQ section, right? So this is a basically a low pass filter, right, set at 1.5K. So basically 1.5 kilohertz, everything above it is all filtered out, right? So this is basically going to be a little bit dark, a little bit warm sounding. So this is how it sounds like, right? I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit first. Okay, this is exaggerated, okay? It's obviously way too much. But we just want a tiny hint of it so that you can sort of feel that little that the vocal is, being placed in this three-dimensional space.
Sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia yang pernah ku sakiti.
So instead of just being like this one thing which is like there in front of you, it has that little bit of 3D space behind it lah. Okay, so we're gonna add a little bit more to it. Let's actually check out at the quieter section of the songs first.
Maafkan aku.
Okay, because it might be a little bit too much at the quieter section.
Tersalahku memikirkan.
All right, okay, let's bring it down to that. Next one, let's move on. Mono delay. So, all right, I'm going to add a mono delay, and this mono delay is going to be set to, in this case, I think 16th notes. We'll check it out because it's based on the tempo, okay? Right. So this one is going to give me a little bit of the front to back. All right.
Maafkan aku. Sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia yang pernah ku sakiti.
There we go.
Saat ku belum mengenal.
There we go. Okay. So it's giving a little bit of that front to back depth, right? But not it's performing what reverb does, but not swamping it out like the way reverb the way reverb does it. Okay. So now let's do a few other things. All right. So obviously this is a very dynamic song. Now, if I were to keep this level at a static level, it's going to be way too loud in the verses. So I'm going to just blend this down a little bit. I'll just do a little bit of rough automation. Okay, so let's start here. Okay.
Jangan kau ingatkan aku.
Actually, before I do that, I think I got to go back to dealing with these guitars first. So again, mixing is one thing is that it is not a linear process. It's not a step. It's not a process where you go from A to B to C and all the way up the alphabet. Sometimes it's A, B, C, D, and then you jump to K, and then L, M, N, and then sometimes you jump back to D, E, F. It's not a linear thing. Sometimes you could be going all the way to X and then Y, and then suddenly go all the way back to A again just to tweak something. It's not a linear process, sorry. So sometimes everything affects everything. You tweak one thing, it affects another thing. You tweak another thing, it affects another thing. So that is why it's such a balance, such a fun, interesting game of cat and mouse that you're trying to chase the tails, basically, right? Sorry, actually, that's actually a right. Chasing tail is actually a kind of an inappropriate remark. Okay, apologies for that. Okay, here we go. Nothing much really needs to be done, okay? So I will put one thing here, which I love to use on all this plucking stuff, and that is MV2. Okay, so let's check it out, right? So MV2, can remember, with the low level compression brings out all the, some of the more subtle details. So in this case, all the finger plucking, all right, or the sustain of all the notes will be brought up. So let's see, right? It will be enhanced. Basically, we want to bring out more of that detail. Even the sound of the pick attack, right, is a little bit more pronounced as well. Very nice. There we go. Now, I would probably add a little bit of reverb to this. So let me see. Okay, I got to make a decision now. Should I add this on the acoustic guitar bus, which I think I will. Okay, let's do that. All right, so let's go Liquid Sonics Reverb Lustrous Plates. All right, so Liquid Sonics is a really, really cool. So I would go with the Strum Silver. Okay, a little bit of the 1.2. There we go. Beautiful. All right. Let's bring in the vocal again and in context.
Jangan kau ingatkan aku.
There we go.
Kini kau ada dirinya.
Okay, so let's start at this about minus 3 dB.
Semua rasa yang masih tersisa kau harus bahagia dengannya.
Okay, right. So probably up.
Maafkan aku, sedar salahku.
Okay, so on the maafkan aku, it only comes up to here. Da, 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 da. Oh man, okay. There's one thing that of a lot of the Malay pop ballads is that sometimes, it's can be sometimes depressing to be listening to a lot of these songs, and I've mixed countless right of all these pop songs to sort of sometimes it does get to you, right? Somehow mentally, just by listening to the words and the lyrics over and over again. So who knows?
Maafkan aku,
There we go.
sedar salahku.
So what I'm doing here is all, and pretty much what I'm going to be showing throughout the live stream, these are all the broad strokes, okay? In order to go to all the fine-tuned details, right, there's a lot more fine-tuning which usually takes place later after this. So usually when I come to about 2-3 hours, that's usually where the live stream ends, where I reach maybe about 80-90% of the way lah. So once it gets to that, right, then only I'll come back and give myself an ear break and then come back and do all the fine details. So now these are all just the broad strokes first.
Mikirkan tentang dia.
Okay, so one more thing, I guess, let's automate it a little bit more. So when we get into this first verse, this is where the vocal, the reverb comes in. So there we go, let's automate.
Bahagia dengannya. Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
Alright, so I've automated so that the reverb comes in right at this chorus, okay? And again, to make this very subtle, first of all, at about minus 25.
Yang pernah ku sakiti saat ku belum mengenal cinta. Andai ku memilih cintamu untuk kali ini, pasti
And then
akan ku
when it kicks into the bridge, it's probably where the vocal gets loud.
terpilih untuk setia. Dengannya.
Alright, let's pull in some of the distortion guitars. Alright. Okay, that's the next rhythmic thing that would come in. Dengannya. Let's check it out. Solo distortion. Right. So let's take out all the bottom end. So it's a bit of honk. About 700. Yeah, that's 700. And about 2.4. All right, we can copy this over. All right, let's pan this hard left and right. Let's link the distortion and let's blend it in. Right. So this is why I skip over, adding all these distortion guitars first. We want, especially in pop, to have the vocal really be upfront and center. Right, you want it to be there, right? So that the listener really engages with it. The focus is drawn towards the lead vocal. Then once that is there, it is established, it's strong. Then only I bring in the rest of the instruments to support the song, right? To support the vocal, because sometimes if you were to start with mixing with all the instruments first, making everything sound great, the music all sounds great, everything works fine, and then you try to mix in the vocal at the end stage, the later stages, sometimes you will find that you struggle, because now it's like, the instruments have taken up all the frequency, the sonic real estate there, and then in order to make that vocal fit, you're going to have to be very aggressive with the treatment, you're going to be very aggressive with the EQ, turning it a little bit unnatural, right? So that's why I say bring in the vocal as early as possible, okay? So I go drums, bass, right, the chordal rhythm instruments, vocal, then only come back and fill up the rest of the gap. So this is what my thought process behind this is. Okay, so here we go. Distortion, let's blend it. All right, so let's give it a little bit of bite, okay? These guys, the distortion guitars needs a little bit of. So, and what I would do is Better Maker, right? This is awesome, man. This plugin at first glance, even the hardware unit also, right? At first glance is very confusing. But actually, once you get past the confusing state, right, it's actually pretty cool. It's like a modern, it's like a Pultec, but with a modern controls behind it lah. So basically, that's it. Just about a dB bypass, just to kind of give it a little bit of. All right. All right, so let's bring in some of the piano parts. Okay, let's bring in this piano. Okay, now I feel that this piano needs a lot more. Okay, needs a little bit more sustain to it, okay? To bring out, there's already some reverb on it, so I don't really need to add reverb, but I wanted to bring out a little bit more of that. So once again, MV2 is a great tool for doing this. All right, so let's bring up the low level. So especially the sustain, the reverb comes out a little bit more. And some of the softer notes as well. In normal circumstances, it will probably get buried. It might get lost. But this helps it to come out lah. Okay? Here we go. Let's blend it in. I may want to add a little bit more reverb, but we'll see how. Okay, wow. One thing about pianos, right, especially with a lot of modern sample pianos nowadays, is that they tend to be too wide, right? It sounds like the piano is like 20 feet wide. You're sitting in front of the piano, sounds like it's a little bit unnatural. So I sometimes would prefer to just tuck in the piano a little bit. So like 75, okay? So it's not way too wide lah, okay? All right. There you go. It's a little bit better, right? Yeah, so the piano doesn't sound like it's like 30 feet wide, right, in your ears. There we go. Okay, so this acoustic guitar 2, which is actually fills. So same thing. I'm also going to put MB2 on this. MB2 is lovely. It's really lovely on these elements lah. Okay, let's pull in MB2. This one I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive, because I really want to hear the detail of the pluck, right? All the finger, right? In that as well. So, okay. Now with this guy, I will probably want to, with this lead, I want to be a little bit creative. So let's drop in maybe a little bit of magic switch, which is actually, again, from Baby Audio, right? This adds a little bit of chorus.
Lenyap
Not too much. Just a little bit.
bahagia dengan kau ada. Jangan kau ingatkan aku. Kini kau ada dirinya. Lenyapkan semua rasa yang masih.
All right, say. So this second guitar, I'm panning it to the left, okay? And the reason why I'm panning it to the left is, okay, laptop has fallen asleep again. Oh no, it hasn't. Or has it? Oh. Hello? Yeah. Did my laptop just like literally fall asleep and now I can't see? Okay, there we go. We're back back to it again, all right? So that's weird. And hang on a second, all right? Let me go back to my YouTube studio window. Hey, we've got, and super cool. Let me go back to the control room. Okay, I think the thing is the thing is I've actually got a new laptop, so the new laptop, right? The settings, it has gone to sleep. Right. Okay, right. So let me just kind of catch up with some of the comments. Nav says this is an awesome show. Despite being someone who's not from the technical side, I have learned a lot about what goes on behind the scenes in making music and releasing it. Thanks, man. Oh, I mean, I enjoyed all your podcast episodes where you talk with all the different audio engineers and producers as well. So very, very educational as well for me, right? It's a beautiful song, Sam. Right. Sam says thank you. Right. How can I forget Saber Rider? All right. Very cool. Every time I go to the bass rider and vocal rider, I always bring up that reference. So some people get it, right? 80s kids will get it. And hello, Diamond District Studios. Hello, calling up from Johannesburg, South Africa. Greetings. Holler all the way from South Africa, man. Thanks for tuning in to my little channel. I'll make sure that I'll catch up with you and check out your channel as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. But anyway, back to where I was about the acoustic guitar. So I'm panning it to the left because piano, right? Usually piano, your right hand side, your right hand is where the high melody is. So right, to counter that, if I were to pan the guitar, this guitar 2, C2 to the right, it's going to fight with the melody, the right hand melody. So I'm going to pan it to the left instead.
Sisa kau harus bahagia dengannya.
In fact, the vocal feels like a little soft. I'll bring it up by about half dB. Yeah, half dB makes a huge difference, man.
Maafkan aku.
Right, let's bring in more guitars. So this is a delay guitar. Right, so simple, just a little high pass. Right, yeah, so, okay. A little bit of that nasally, about 950, 960, just a very little cut. And really, not much to do. And you can guess it, I'm going to bring up MV2 again. If there's one plugin from Waves that you have to buy, and you should buy, right? If you only have money, you can only afford one plugin from Waves, buy MV2, okay? All right. Waves, please sponsor. I'm giving you an ad. So once again, this is doing like parallel. It's doing a little bit of expansion, right? And it's bringing up all the tails, the delay tails, bringing up all the extra additional low level detail.
Memilih cintamu untuk kali ini pasti akan ku terus berpaling namun
Okay, I may want to sort of dial the snare back down a tiny bit.
ku pilih untuk setia.
Okay, right. I can sometimes be a little bit guilty of making the drums, the kick and snare a little bit too in your face, okay? So that's the rocker in me lah, alright? Okay, that's great. So that's the delay guitar. Let's look at the drive guitar. This is an overdriven. It's a little bit overdriven, a little bit of a reverb to it. And again, once again, great candidate for this sort of thing is MV2. So this is like, this mix is sponsored by MV2, man. Okay? So it's gonna increase that sustain. So that sustain is a lot more, yeah, a little more stretched out.
Memilih cintamu untuk kali ini.
Very cool. All right, just bringing the delay guitar back down a notch. This drive guitar needs a little touch of reverb, so let's bring up Sound Toys and the good old little plate. Right, simple plugin, just a simple plate reverb. Right, let's turn the mix back down. Yeah, just to give it a bit of, I just really want to give it a little bit of ambience, a bit of modulation to it. There we go. Let's bring.
Sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
Very nice. Let's go with this pluck guitar. Let's see what this is going on. It's kind of similar to what that delay guitar is doing, but it's more of a continuous pluck. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there's about 1.6K is right. So now this one, I think this one will, I'll go with a more traditional compression instead. So with clean stuff, I love to use the LA3. Is really awesome on clean guitars, man. So this will be more traditional. Yeah, because this kind of helped to sort of darken and push it a little bit back, I think.
Maafkan aku. Sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia. Yang
There you go.
pernah ku sakiti saat ku belum mengenal.
Maafkan aku. Okay, now with all the, again, in context, this needs to be up by another half dB. All right, sweet. So now, instead of just the reverb, which I automated earlier, so let's jump back to the vocal. I'm going to sort of show you one more thing which I love to do, especially when it comes to vocals. So mixing is always about bringing dynamics. It's about pushing the listener, grabbing the listener's interest, and bringing them along for the ride. So not only is not only is that achieved from the music arrangement, the performance delivery, but the mix can also, sort of manipulate that sort of feeling and to sort of elicit that response. So that's our job as a mixing engineer. Yes, your music arrangement is laid out in that certain way to develop it, to develop that drive and the build up of the dynamics. The performance also is done in such a way, but the mix can also manipulate it. Okay, so that's why you see I automate the vocals to be a little bit louder. But not only that, I want to add the sense of space and size to be a little bit bigger as well. So this is how I'm going to do it. Very, very common trick, so to speak, is that in a verse to have a mono delay, and then when you get into the chorus, I'll kick in a stereo delay instead. Okay, so let me just dial it in first. All right, let me change this to 0, and I'm going to change this to quarter notes dotted. Let me unlink the feedback and going to bring the left feedback a little bit more. Okay, just a little bit more, because the delay times are different, quarter notes versus quarter delays. So if the feedback is the same, what's going to happen is that the delay tail is definitely going to trail a little bit longer on one side, right? So by compensating this way, you have both of them kind of like trailing off in both sides and at the same, roughly the same length. So here we go. Okay, ready?
Maafkan aku.
So you hear that? When I stop it, then you can hear the stereo delay going on. So this will kick in the chorus.
Maafkan aku. Sedar salahku memikirkan.
All right. Okay, hang on a second. Which shows that it's off, but you still hear the delay. Okay, it's a weird. There we go.
Sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
So not only is it getting louder, but also the ambience also goes from a mono delay to like a wide and developing. So especially if you're listening on a nice headphones, it feels like, basically the way to describe it, it feels like you are being hugged by the vocal, by the ambience. Like the vocal is giving you a nice little warm hug, making you feel nice and cozy. So that's what this stereo delay does. Okay, let's automate this so that it.
Kisah kita telah berakhir, sudah lupakan saja diriku dan pergilah selamanya. Semoga kau bahagia.
So, right, this quiet bridge section, drop out the stereo delay, right, and then bring it back in when the whole band kicks in. So, same thing will happen at the end.
Namun ku pilih untuk setia.
Very nice. Okay, very cool. So let's go on. Okay, we have this little octave guitar going on. Check it out. Let's check it out first of all. Right, I'm going to take out a lot of bottom end. Okay, you don't need all. Right, and about 3.3K. So I'm going to do a little cut there. This will help it to sort of poke, to fit in with the vocal, because again, it's giving space for the vocal to come in. This will need a little bit of plate, so let's bring that in once again. So this will go. Right, let me decide where is this going to go. Okay, this will probably go to the right. Okay, hard right. There you go. Very cool. Next thing. Now, we still have the strings. We have the little solo. Let's maybe just slot in this little tambourine here. Okay, so this one basically just like on every second accent. Now, this one, let's bring in... Let's do something a little bit interesting, shall we? Actually... Yeah, let's do a little bit something interesting. Let's add a delay to it and let's see what happens. So I'm gonna put in Echo Boy. Let's see what happens. There we go. So can we do a ping pong? Ah, that's a little bit more interesting. A bit more saturation to it. Take out the low cut. Alright, this will kind of go with Memory Man would be a digital delay, right? Where's the sound? More mix? Okay, it's not working the way I want. Transmitter. Okay, let's go with space. Let's go with space. Not really. Let's go again with Echoplex. Too much of that modulation thing. Okay, studio tape, it looks like it's the best thing. Okay, let's blend it in and see, okay? Again, it could be way too subtle. There you go. Nah, alright, okay. So the reason why it's now counterproductive is because I was trying to give a little bit of rhythmic interest to this tambourine, but that function is already being done by the acoustic guitar. So just adding this little delay is kind of just, it's eating into it's kind of fighting with the acoustic guitar. So let's go with the straight up normal reverb, okay? That's all we need, just to give it a bit of, and longer delay, longer reverb. There we go, yeah. So a nice long reverb tail to it. More mix. Alright, so now that going back to the mixing is not a linear thing, now when everything's a little bit more busier, it feels like the drum's going to need a little bit more reverb again. So now let's go back to the reverb and we're going to go to reverence. So reverence is stock, it's built in. It's built into Cubase. So this is actually a convolution reverb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in some of my own custom IR reverb IRs, and these you can get. All right, you can get if you sign up for the email list. Right, if you sign up for my email list, it brings you to a landing page where you can have a link to download all these reverb IR libraries. So all of these windows that I have here, you got IRs from Untitled Eclipse, the H3000, Lexicon 480, 4960, all the Lexicon machines, Sony TC6000, Yamaha SPX 990. What I'm gonna look for is this one and let's look for the snare plate, yeah, which is kind of the ones that I always go to. So let's go back to the drums. Let's add a little bit of reverb to it, okay?
Maaf,
Yeah. There we go. So now I'm gonna EQ this reverb a little bit. About 960. Gonna try and brighten it up a little bit. Yeah, so that's a little bit of splashy high end comes out.
akan ku terus berpaling, namun ku pilih untuk
Now I can probably add this to the tambourine. Okay, so let's add this in.
sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia.
There you go.
Yang pernah ku sakit.
Okay, I'm gonna give it a really long reverb.
Memilih jalan aku. Sedar
There you go. That's much better.
memikirkan tentang dia. Yang pernah ku sakiti. Saat ku belum
All right, okay, let's move this. Let's add this little thing in here. This is actually a reverse cymbal, but you know, I call it slap my C, which is actually cymbals the other way around. Okay, so this,
Kisah kita telah berakhir. Kisah kita telah berakhir.
same. Let's send it to this reverb, okay?
Kisah kita telah berakhir. Sudah lupakan.
There we go. Okay, let's go. BBs. Let's add in a little bit of the BBs. So, the really good job on the BBs as well. Really nice vocal production on all the backing vocals. So let's tackle this one by one, right? So let's start with the first BB. These are all double track parts. First one, take out the bottom end. Don't need too much of that. Okay, now so a little bit of there at about 890. All right, okay. So we can just copy this over. Left and right. Let's link the two together. So
Sisa
now I'll actually go to the chorus and let's blend it in here, okay?
maafkan aku. Sedar salah maafkan aku.
Okay, let's go with the next part, BV 3 and 4. Let's solo this. So this is like a lower part. So you have one little there. About 1.1K, a little bit of that little, and a bit of scratchiness. 5.6, just a bit of scratchiness there. Can take out everything above 10K as well. Don't need it. 10,000. All right, let's copy it over. Now for backing vocals, right? How wide should you pan this? So you can do pretty much anything. There's no rules, but generally speaking, if you want your elements and you want your parts to sound as wide as possible, you send the higher, whatever's higher frequencies, you pan them higher, you pan them wider in the mix. There's something which is a little bit more lower, right? A little bit more lower frequencies, lower range notes. you keep them towards the middle, and right, because of the nature of these type of frequencies lah, right? Low frequencies tend to be unidirectional. They tend to be more omni, while whereas high frequencies tend to be more directional in nature. So right, so now if you do it the other way around, if you keep your high frequencies towards the middle, you will have a narrower image. So no right or no wrong, it depends on what you want. So this is a bit scratch. 4.2, it's a bit of scratchiness there. And not a lot, just that one little thing. So this is like a middle part. So let's pan it to 75 left and right. Link the two channels and and last but not least, we have this fourth pair. Okay, let's check it out. So this is basically the same part as earlier. It's just an octave, like falsetto. This one doesn't need anything. All right, all it needs is just a high pass filter. All right, same thing. So being the highest part, the falsetto, hard left, hard right lah. There we go. That's how the blend sounds like. Right, so let's pull in. So again, I always have, some go-to starting points for BVs. So I have this H3000 set with this DVD's background vocals. I like this preset. Let's bring up the it's a little bit of a slap reverb. 50-50. Let's bring it out. Let's play it in context. So it needs to be they all need to be just a tad louder. So I think that middle, yeah, this one, the pair 5 and 6 needs to go down just a tiny touch. All right, just a tiny touch. 12 and minus 12, minus 12. Okay. Very cool. All right, so with this also, all right, let's bring in Vocal Rider. Very useful. So again, let's go for smooth ride. Just give it as little. There you go. All right. Yeah, it's sitting a lot better now. Alright, very, very cool. Add a little bit of that stereo delay to give it, again, a little bit more washiness. Alright, automate it a little bit.
masih tersisa, kau harus bahagia dengannya.
Okay, let's start this at about -4. Then when you kick into the chorus.
Maafkan aku,
Okay, the Davies BGV is a bit too much. You're hearing a bit too much of the slap.
sedar salahku.
Start here.
Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan tentang dia. Aku memikirkan tentang dia.
So everything needs to be automated. So I'll just pull this very, very quickly first. All right, so roughly let's set it at that, okay? All right, so once again, I'm showing you only mostly the overall, the moves, okay? Right, the broad strokes instead of going through all the super, super fine detail of stuff, okay? All right, Sam says, like, I'm not sure as well. Sorry, JD. No worries, man. It's okay. That's cool. That's fine. Let's move on to the solo. Thank you so much for still sticking around, man. 12 something. You know, this is not really the longest. The longest one that I've ever done before was like took almost 5+ hours, and that is Dewata Raya, man. They are the legendary lah, because their song was super complicated. They were more of a progressive kind of a folk rock kind of a band. So theirs took like 5 hours plus because they had 100+ tracks and a gazillion parts. So let's go to the solo. So we take out a lot of bottom end, and once again with solos, with leads, MV2 is really, really fantastic as well. Because again, it brings out note detail, brings out the clarity, brings out things like the pick attack, right? Let's solo this first of all. So especially, right, it's really important when it comes to rock to hear the definition of the note attack, all that, because that's really that gives all the energy and the excitement to it lah. Because that's where all the high frequency energy comes from. All right, very, very cool. Now for guitar solos, I love putting the Acon Digital Multiply, which again, I think it's a free plugin, so check it out. Just gives a little bit of widening, a little bit of chorus, and last but not least, let's bring in Echo Boy, right? Once again, just use Echo Boy Junior. 8 notes probably will work fine. There you go. It's like this default setting is really works really good. Let's check it out. Bring down a little bit of the multiply. Very cool, very nice. Okay, let's copy this over to the solo. So again, just set this at the static mix levels first, okay? Alright, so automate this.
Lupakan saja diriku dan pergilah selamanya. Semoga kau bahagia dengan
Okay, cut a little bit of 3K to get the.
dirinya. Sedar salahku memikirkan tentangnya. Pernah ku sakiti saat ku belum
Right, I've turned down the kick a little bit because it starts to feel a little bit heavy, okay? Alright, there we go. Alright, so roughly, let's bring in the second solo. Alright. Right, okay. So, once again, there's so many parts in here that a lot of automation is going to need to take place later on, okay? So, just going to run through all of the rough, broad strokes first. Let's move on to the strings, which is final piece of the puzzle, okay? So, these strings, same thing. I also kind of go with virtual tape machines, with virtual mix rack. But this time I'm going to make sure that the virtual drive is a lot cleaner, like all minimum. And I go for the API channel instead. The API again is a little bit more cleaner, a little bit more less of that mid-range bump compared to the SSL. Okay, so but the thing that I have with here with waves with the string parts is I use this again multi-band compressor. This is actually a preset called the upward compressor, right? My tongue is suddenly not working. Basically, this is actually an expansion. It's an expander, right? So this again brings out some of the low level detail. I've tried using MV2 as well, but sometimes MV2 might be a little bit too aggressive for this. So this one kind of is a little bit more cleaner, so to speak. Because I don't really want to change the harmonics too much. If I want to like sort of enhance a little bit more harmonics, maybe I'll use MV2. But something a little bit cleaner, I'll go for C4. Okay, so right, this is basically what it does. Let's just solo the strings 1. And hello, string 1. Okay, there we go. Right, this string 1 is more of, is labeled actually string accent, right? So it's more like a small little section. Okay, I'm going to take out some of the extreme low bottom end. So the annoying part is more of all the rosin sound. So it's generally kind of around here, 7K. Okay, I can also try doing with this little slope. Let's try this. No, it takes away some of the air, so I'm just going to focus it down here. Okay, and then about 3.2K. All right, let me just blend it in. All right, okay, so now in this string group, all right, let me load. Okay, so I have a set of couple of plugins in here. LE2A is just going to be very, very gentle, sometimes not even more than 1 dB. The more important thing is actually this reverb, okay? So let me just cut this reverb down. Input filter, set it to 125 hertz so that, you know, it's filtering out everything below that frequency. So it's really functioning more of a pad. So it's just kind of there to just fill in the space, right? Okay, let's do the same thing with strings 2, okay? So let's check out string 2. So it's kind of the same part. It's just that now instead of just the quartet, this is like a bigger ensemble. So there you go, 2.3. I heard that. So this one doesn't need too much, right? Not too much. Let's go on. So string 3 here, this is actually crescendo fast, so let's check it out. All right, so this is a little accent. Let's bring it up. So let's check it out. Yeah, so just gonna need a little bit of fine tuning here. Okay, the second one is okay. This first chord just needs to be bumped up. Right, it nicely fits in there. Let's go check out the staccato strings. So this plays in the verse. All right, chorus. All right, okay. So roughly there, okay. I think we are pretty much there. So this is what I would say would be the initial first draft on the mix. I'm probably about 80% of the way there. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's going to take way too much time, okay? Now, later on, this is kind of where a good time where I would usually call it in the night, the stream. We're running about kind of 3 hours already into this. So usually this is a good time for anyone to sort of start taking an ear break, because this is where it starts getting a little bit saturated. But I pretty much got all the rough initial balances of what I want, all the EQs of all the main stuff. Now all it just left is all the little automation parts, right? I'm going to show you a couple more things first of all, right? Firstly, let me sort of deal with the stereo bus. Let me just show you what are the things that I've got in here. So a few things, right? AUC's Air EQ. This little EQ here just does a very, very subtle, gentle, in fact, right? Just a 1 dB boost, air boost here, okay? Very, very gentle on the top end. I have Wave C4 stereo. So C4 here, again, multi-band compressor. This is a multi-opto preset. Now what this is going to do, all right, is usually I will dial this in towards the loudest part of the mix, which is in this case the last chorus, and this just makes sure that no particular range of frequencies jump out too much, right? So let's just bring this down. There you go. I just want this to just be dancing a tiny bit, okay? Right, so okay, right. Let me try and freeze up some of these tracks first, okay? Because CPU is starting to get a little bit strained. Plus, I'm running OBS and streaming at the same time. And we're going to call it a night real soon. After I run through the stereo bus, I'll just show a couple more things, a little bit of master bus automation. But thank you so much, man. Thanks again for everyone for tuning in. It's been super, super awesome. Right, thank you again to Sam, all right, for allowing us to feature his song on this stream. Thank you, Nav, for tuning in. I'm really honored and really humbled that you spent the time to come and check out this little live stream that I do, right? Shout out to other folks as well, Ruin and all the way we have our friends from Johannesburg, okay, Diamond District Studios, right? Shout out to you guys out there as well, right? Thank you for tuning in to this live stream, and if you're watching this on the replay, on the recording, thank you also. Really, really appreciate it. All right. So once again, check it out. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do subscribe to the channel. It'll be super, super awesome. There's so much content that I have. Right. We've got like couple of hundred, I think, running 200 plus videos already that I've done. Right. This past 2 years. More to come. I really, really appreciate it. If you want to help to support the channel, do get on the Patreon page, right? Get on the Patreon programs. Head on to the Patreon site, and you can find out more details. There's a lot of special perks and benefits besides just supporting the channel financially. There's a lot of special benefits there as well. So, okay, I freed up a little bit of CPU by freezing the two main vocal tracks. So let's continue with where I left off, right? The stereo bus. Okay, few other things. Okay, virtual bus compressor. So again, these are just going to be very subtle. I've set this up that these three compressors, right? FG Gray, which is an SSL, FG Red is a Focusrite, FG Mu is a this is a Fairchild, right? So each of them are kind of feeding into each other, and each of them only does 1 dB of gain reduction. But actually, because compression, right, is a logarithmic scale, the actual overall compression that's being done is actually 4, right? 4 dBs of compression. Okay, so but very, very subtle. So each one is just doing a little bit, right? So let me just dial it in. So even the toms also, I noticed, will need a little bit of reverb again. There'll always be things that will poke out once in a while, and usually I will straight away jump into and attend to it, right? But I'll show you all those things later. Few more things which I will drop in. All right, some of the secret sauce which I've been doing right recently is this guy here, SPL Iron, right? It's part of the Plugin Alliance Mega Bundle. Okay, so this is beautiful, right? I love what this does. So it's very subtle, but this is actually a what we call it's basically the main mix bus preset, which it is. But I changed it a little bit by putting it into MS mode, right? So MS means mid side. So it means that it's going to be processing the mid and the sides separately. So I disable the parameter link. Okay, let's turn off the output gain boost. This one to compensate down another 2 dB. So this one is, the sides are slightly boosted, right, compared to the middle. So what this does is going to subtly really spread the imaging out. I love adding this to like a little bit at the end of it, just to kind of see, and sometimes it helps to really separate some of the, to give a little bit more separation. Okay, but another cool feature is that besides all the different controls that it has, is that it's got this little, I would say, color switch. You could either have it bypass, or you set it to an airbase, which is like a smiley curve EQ. You can be careful, because sometimes you can overdo it. Or very often now, we should go with more of a tape roll off to just give it, again, a little bit more gentle roll off at the end. So I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, very subtle. Okay, music is cool. Vocals definitely need to be pumped up a little bit, right? So next thing will be UADs 560 actually. So this is a trick which I learned from a mastering engineer. All that he does is just puts this in. There's no boost or cut anything. So just running through the circuitry of the 560, right? In here helps to solidify the middle. That's basically what we're going for. And I feel that maybe we will add just a tiny touch of fresh air. So in some projects, I only do this, right? But this is basically emulating the section of a Dolby A noise reduction system, right? It's a combining system. So this, to cut this long story short, sometimes it's used as a type of an EQ. People have found workaways to sort of work around it and what it does it that it gives this very very subtle, uh not subtle, okay, it can be very very obvious. It gives a very unique high end kind of a little shine to things if used in moderation, okay, because it can be really abused. And I usually never dial in more than 5%, sometimes even like 2 or 3. So let me just dial it in. Let's go again with bypass. Okay, let me go back to the SPL iron again. Let's go back to flat tape roll off. And now we bring this in. Wow. It immediately gives like really nice sparkle to the overall mix, okay? So sometimes I'll just add a little bit of this extra spice at the end of the at the end, okay? So let's go back to this vocal again. So now, generally speaking, usually when I get to this stage, I bring this up about dB. I'll just compensate here, right? At this end of this, at this stage where I start to do all the fine-tuned vocal rides, I usually will switch to my smaller pair of speakers, right? We obviously can't really see it here, right? But I start working on the big, Cali Audio 8-inch speakers, and then I'll gradually move into the smaller NS10s, right? So this is something that you can try out, right? But for me, this is what the multi-monitor system has set up is. So I'm going to switch over to my NS10s now because it's going to give me a different picture, right? It's going to give me a different perspective, especially on the vocal balance, right? So let me dial in the volume control. NS10s are of course passive speakers, so they need a power amp, which I've just turned on down there. So let me just listen to this, right? So check this section. Yeah, so some things like I think the guitar solo can be turned down. Yeah, not to say turn down. It needs to be automated. So some parts it needs to come up, some parts need to come down. At the moment, a lot of these are just static mixes. Okay, a lot of automation's not being done yet. Some of the strings also will need to make sway for. Yeah, make way at the 3K. So again, you gotta give. Okay, cool. Got it. All right, I got it. So now, there's one. Okay, so there's one last thing. So with this sort of a song arrangement, I probably don't have much space to do it, but I'll show you where I will do this. So this is a trick which you can always employ with any mix instantly, right? It's part of what I talked about earlier about creating dynamics and pushing the listener forward to the song. So it's a really, really old trick, and that is just to automate the master volume, right? So in this case, what we do is that you automate it so that whenever the chorus kicks in, you just bump up the master by 1 dB, right? Some people do 1.5, but I just say 1 dB is probably enough lah. Right, so I'm going to pick this spot right here after this bridge, right? So it's such a dynamic song. I'm going to need to do a lot of automation. Okay, so it's going to kick in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So let me fine tune this. So just a ramp up. 2 bars actually. So once the chorus kicks in, everything is just a dB louder. So the way that the end result is that, wow, it feels like the song gets a little bit bigger. It's being a little bit more energetic. But actually, all you did is all I did is just bump up the master fader by 1 dB. So in some song structures, in some song arrangements, if you maybe have a typical verse chorus kind of a structure, right? You would probably do that. You bring it up in the choruses, bring it back down in the second verse, bring it back up again in the second chorus, down in the bridge, and then finally up in the last chorus. But because of this song arrangement, I guess there's only one place where I can do this, because the rest of the song, the way that the instrumentation comes in, it already has a natural build up here, from first verse, first chorus to the bridge, the solo bridge, and so only this part needs to come up. All right, so that's pretty much it. Actually, we're gonna wrap it up. Let's call it a night. Thank you so much again for watching. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, right, on a Friday night. I know there's lots of other stuff that could be out there, but you've chosen to tune in again, and appreciate those of you who are watching this on a replay as well. Okay, there are lots of stuff. If you have any questions, you're going to comments, please leave them down below or hit me up right on my social media. All my contact details are all down in the description. Okay, remember, please like, share, and subscribe. Do become a patron. You want to support the channel financially, and you want to support more content like this, okay, and various other contents that I have. So here we go. This is what I would say it would be the first draft of Sam Muhammad's upcoming brand new single, Bukan Dirimu. Right, please follow Sam Muhammad. Right, details of his all his links are down in the description as well. So here we go. All right, Bukan Dirimu. Intro. So stay tuned. Once the mix is done, I believe the video has already been shot, right? I think Sam told me they already shot the music video already. It's just waiting for me to finish the mix, and then it's gonna should be out, I guess, by end of this month, right? So usually I'll take it, I'll let this mix sit and rest. Probably come back tomorrow with fresh ears to come back to work on all the fine details and all the automation. Where's chorus?
Maafkan aku, sedar salahku memikirkan.
Dial the snare down a little bit.
Yang pernah ku sakiti.
Let me check the compression on the snare. Okay, that's probably where I want to dial it back in to bring it back to the fastest attack. Yeah, King, I think that works a little bit better. Have to sort of lighten it, otherwise that snare hits a little bit too hard.
Akan ku terus berpaling, namun ku pilih untuk
Just down the kick down just a little touch. Vocal sits a lot better like this. Just 1 dB makes a huge difference. Obviously, a lot of these BBs all need a lot of automation. But this guitar solo as well, it's quite important. Some parts and notes need to come back out and down. Modulation to a new key, going to this new bridge.
kita telah berakhir, sudah lupakan saja diriku dan pergilah selamanya. Semoga kau bahagia dengan dirinya.
And then finally going to chorus up by about dB. So this very small subtle change just lifts the whole song up with effortlessly. It's not a major trick. It's just bumping it up by a single dB. Oh, okay, it's a little glitchy there. Right, taking up quite a bit of CPU power lah. Beautiful.
Memilih cintamu untuk kali ini. Akan ku terus berpaling, namun ku pilih untuk setia.
Toms might need to again dial it back down, and I remember about the reverb on the toms too. Because now I added reverb there. Then the ends.
Pilih untuk setia.
I might make that last line of the chorus dry again. That's probably has more dramatic effect that way. So there you have it. Thank you so much. Good night, folks, and stay safe, man. See you. Stay happy and healthy. Peace, love, and music, everyone. See you again in another video real soon. Have a good weekend. Goodbye.